about a teaspoon of crack cocaine. Think about that. That's what Joe Biden did. That's exactly what Joe Biden put in place. And let's not try to play stupid here, folks. He didn't write those drug laws from a place of ignorance. He wrote them from a place of knowledge, intimate knowledge of how his family is. That's how Joe Biden wrote those laws. He wrote those laws tailor-made to attack black people and also tailor-made to the culture of white society. That's how the laws are. We got to make sure that these laws are written. There are going to be some exceptions in there, and the exceptions will be specifically written so that it covers what white society does. So Joe Biden wrote the 94 crime bill and his 86 drug laws with the idea that, hey, if the day ever comes that my kids get involved in drugs, and by 94 he had to know that his son was involved in drugs and that his daughter was probably going to go the same way.
Man.
Because only a few years after 94, when his daughter got arrested. So Joe Biden's sitting here going, yeah, I know that my son Hunter has been snorting lines of coke off his sister Ashley's ass. Because apparently there were no prostitutes. Apparently there were no other family relatives of the female persuasion that he could get his hands on. So hey, Ashley will have to do. But while he was busy snorting lines of coke off of Ashley's behind, we want to make sure that it's not too much good. Hey, only enough to get high. What? He only snorted about 1 cup full? Oh, just 100 grams? Well, I mean, you can't put somebody in prison for that, you see? You can't do that. Why, he needs rehab. You can't give him all that. Wait a minute. What are you saying? Marion Barry got caught smoking crack? That guy should be in prison? Zero tolerance? What, is there going to be some sort of exception for someone just because they're a public figure? Are people above the law once they go into politics? Yeah, Joe, that's exactly what they are. If they're above the law. Well, so long as their skin color is the right complexion. Yeah, Joe Biden knew exactly what he was doing and exactly who he was doing it against.
Man.
Biden's law, as he called it, was not about drugs at all. It never was. It was just Biden still pursuing his ongoing anti-black racist crusade. Same as when he tried to force an amendment into an educational funding bill in the 70s to try to backdoor make busing illegal. It was his backdoor means of doing that.
The supplies we're after are being moved by a Merryweather convoy. Intercept at the point marked on your GPS and bring them back to the bunker.
Between crack and powder cocaine illegal. He never tried anything like that. Joe Biden never tried to force Congress to pass legislation that would do anything to help black people. Oh, he was a zealot. We're going to get this passed all the way to the upside. Oh, you got this educational funding bill? Well, guess what's getting added to it? Well, when it comes to things that would help black people, all of a sudden, Joe Biden, he lost that fire in the belly. He wasn't trying to force legislation down Congress' throat. This is going to help black people. We got to get this through. Yeah, I know you guys don't want it, but you know what? If you want this omnibus funding bill to pass, there's going to have to be something for black folks in here. Oh, you want to have this supplemental funding bill for the Iraq War? Well, you're going to have to put this in here to help black folks. No, Joe Biden wasn't doing that. Family, we got to stop giving bootlicks, turncoats, and sellouts among black folks a pass. What's going on in South Carolina with Jim Clyburn, that bastard ought to have an army of black folks outside of whatever his fetid little political sewer that he calls his office there is. Black folks in South Carolina should be on the warpath to let Jim Clyburn know. If you do not denounce Joe Biden, if you do not repudiate that bastard, guess who's getting voted out?
Your ass.
When you see that people like Bobby Rush and Cynthia McKinney supported Joe Biden's anti-black racism, we've got to stop it with the, well, you got to forgive the Congressional Black Caucus, Lord, for they know not what they do. Because that was some of the crap that I saw going on, not just in my Twitter feed, but also in the comment section on my videos. You got some fools who are still sitting here. I guess Cynthia McKinney must have gotten a street light bulb replaced on your block 25 years ago. Or Bobby Rush, he must have gotten like some new sewer grates 50 years ago. You got some black folks who are eternally grateful for that. It doesn't matter that these clowns also helped to get some of your relatives locked up, if not some of you. They painted a bullseye on your back and helped Joe Biden to load up his guns with plenty of ammo.
You in position? Merriweather are inbound. Stop the convoy, get the supplies, drop them at the bunker. Out.
Had 100 times as much drugs as you had. Watch them walk out of court without so much as a buy your leave. Maybe then you have a different perspective. Stop making excuses for these black bootlicks who have been carrying water for and helping to support white supremacy. They know exactly what they're doing, just like Joe Biden. Besides, there were a number of members of the Congressional Black Talkers who gave token resistance to the '94 crime bill. They gave token resistance, and afterwards when they weren't busy trying to find a way to get some lobbyists or some white corporation to get their money, they gave a tisk to the '94 crime bill. So it's not as if black folks in Congress didn't know what it was. And before anyone gets ready to pull the old, well, these laws are pretty lengthy, sometimes they're hundreds of pages. That was the case with Biden's law, sure. But we gotta stop letting that be the cover-all excuse. That's going to be just the one-size-fits-all excuse for why black legislators vote against our interests. Well, the law had a lot of pages to it,
Yeah, he snatched it.
Today is Juneteenth. It's a day celebrated as the end of slavery in America when federal troops entered Galveston, Texas, and General Gordon Granger announced to the population, all slaves are free. Now Congress is forming a committee to look at the idea of reparations. Let's look at that ourselves.
Fuck the idea, nigga. You gonna pay what you owe. And $100. Don't forget that. And $100.
Tonight voting rights, Jim Crow versus Nigeria. Neighbors, red line. What's that now? Yeah.
And that's the Federal Reserve.
Homeowners. Yeah. Fuck HR 40.
Thank you.
Fuck HR 40. Oh shit.
Hey, nothing but bullshit.
Oh, he's lying sack of shit too. Oh, y'all full of shit.
It is a cancer on the soul of our country and hurts the whole body politic. This idea that it's just about writing a check from one American to another.
It is writing a check.
That's the beginning. 20 trillion is the price tag for reparations for Foundation of Black American. Period. I don't want to hear nothing else. If you know honest, you'll only have black people that's on white programming that talk about, well, it's not just a check.
One of the tools that Congress uses to examine complex issues. About 70% of commissions are policy-based examinations. Allie, we ran through all the complex history and all of the policies related to how we created, essentially, black economic exclusion.
They were black economics when you burned it.
How do we change that? And this is a tool, and it's a democratic process tool for examining complex questions. In order to give advice to Congress, it doesn't dictate anything at me. It gives advice to Congress, enabling it to have the expertise.
Advice?
A lot of people
Fuck advice, bitch. You owe the
Yeah,
motherfuckers
I was gonna come up with some kind of damn
half an ass. Well, we're talking it over.
survey.
We're
Some
looking
group of
at it.
men that are not black, all gonna be white.
No, there won't be foundational blacks. They won't have a history of this country like we did.
whites and 32% of blacks oppose reparations. That may be true.
What?
Whether the question is understood. In other words, what do you even mean by reparations? I think that's exactly right. The question isn't understood. In some ways, you know, reparations
60%
is
of
the
Africa.
hot button.
You know, that's the same number that they had when they asked, what is Martin Luther King's approval ratings, and that's right before he woke up and started talking real militant.
Another commission for this. You got a commission for this. I'm probably you got a commission now. Learn the shit.
Documented and you can identify. So here, the point is there's a debate in the community around what does it mean to correct the deep injustices of the past that people today experience. And I think part of this idea of a
Plain and simple, black empowerment.
is to help
I control and I hold my own motherfucking destiny, and I have assets and I have wealth that I can pass on to my children.
948 support, 284 disagree.
not achieving that wealth gap you pointed to, Allie. But when we fix some of these structural problems about how people get discriminated against, say in home loans, or as we've heard from Mr. Kickover, from access to credit if you're trying to start a small business, we're often not just fixing it for people that are black. You're actually fixing it for everybody. And one of the
Bullshit.
Not everybody is in the same boat as black people. Dumbass. That's the shit that kills me. How you gonna put yourself in the same category as black people when you ain't black, motherfucker? I consider myself, no, I ain't consider it, ain't no, I thought motherfuckers look at me. Do you understand what it means to be black in America? No. Any nigga, any person that's black in America can give me that motherfucker in questions and answer within seconds. No. It impacts you more if you're black, because we had laws that specifically said if your ass is black and you're loitering and you don't have a specific letter from a white person who is an employer, you're a vagrant, and we will arrest your black ass and you will get sent back to the plantation that they burned down.
Out of 50 states, we got 32
We had
black communities. Self-sufficient.
That we own, control, and had the politics too.
But you got
And
you gotta get him.
and the neighboring white communities burned them down. So you're gonna tell me that it's all right and it's okay that that's just in the past? It's just a blue rays of another day? Bullshit. I'll be damned. Turn that
As
down.
if they didn't know Joe Biden's record. No, this was in the public. What happened was you got some Negroes who are paying white supremacy to give. They are giving their exchange to white supremacy. White supremacy puts you in Congress, so now you got to pay back white supremacy through policy. You got to carry water for it, and that's what they're doing. One hand washes the other. If these clowns don't have enough gumption to actually read the bill, then that's their first clue that they ought not be voting for it. Because as we all know, these racists in Congress, they love to bury their anti-black laws inside a dictionary-sized document. This is not new. And if you got somebody who is passing the biggest, most sweeping criminal legislation in the country, at the very least, don't you think you ought to take some time away from hanging out with your mistresses or trying to get some white interested party to give you money and actually read the damn thing? It's not as if this was snuck into some sort of farm subsidy bill, or it was snuck into an educational bill, or snuck into an omnibus spending bill. This was the freaking 1994 crime bill.
Man.
And apparently that wasn't obvious enough for Cynthia McKinney or Bobby Rush or Kwesi Mfume or any of these other clowns. Apparently that wasn't obvious enough to them that I might want to read this, because you know how they've been using these crime laws to target black people. So the biggest, most sweeping criminal legislation in the country's history, I might want to actually read it before I vote on it, huh? Maybe this might be one of those things that you actually decide that you're going to filibuster. Imagine that, Carol Moseley Braun. Imagine that, a black person in Congress who actually filibusters a law and says, we're not going to pass this law until we look at it, until we read it, and until we actually debate the things in it, because we know there's some stuff that screw black folks over. But let's be honest, family. If you're a black person who's made it to Washington, D.C., you're in Congress now, then there's a better than 98% chance that white power put you there. Barack Obama was not chosen by us. He was chosen by the white supremacists and the Democrats. And Jim Clyburn was
For this resupply, you're going up to the altruist camp to take their doomsday provisions. Don't think anyone will be upset and end-of-the-world death cult have a few less guns to play with.
Sorority and fraternity clowns. These professional white behind kissers who already made their deal with the devil decades ago and said, hey, master, if you go ahead and give me one of them federal jobs, I'll sell black folks a quill. Why, I'll be the best little cutthroat you ever had on the payroll. I kid you not. And they've been exactly that.
Yeah.
No, the 1994 crime bill's racist provisions did not sneak past the congressional black talkers. They didn't fail to notice. This wasn't some irresistible candidate whose election was unstoppable. White power put the 94 crime bill together, and it also put those black bootlicks who voted for it in Washington, D.C. Again, how many of these black politicians at the local, state, or federal level have made it a point to reach out to and regularly engage with the black media? They'll talk to the unhinged, mentally deranged dinosaurs who nobody listens to and nobody watches. They'll talk to the breakfast schlubs, but they avoid us the same way that a cockroach avoids a can of Raid. They know we're out here, and they know we're a threat to their meal ticket. Their job is supposed to be to control black folks. They're the controlled opposition, but we're the ones who they hope to control. They give lip service to our interests occasionally, but not too much. They'll give lip service to our interests, but they're not about to do a damn thing to improve our condition, and they're not about to do a damn thing to protect us from white supremacy. These bootlicks sold us out. They voted for the 94 crime bill because that's their job. That's what they're there for. And none of them ever call out Joe Biden's little brats. None of them ever say, wait a minute, why is it that we got all these black folks going to jail, but Joe Biden's kids have never spent a night in the prison, sir? We got all these black folks going to prison, but Hunter Biden got caught using cocaine, and Joe Biden's daughter got caught snorting cocaine, and these guys aren't going to prison? I guess they didn't snort enough, huh? Now, to end this evening's Thursday night address on a side note, you can take this with a big grain of salt, because over here in in the black media, the very first thing we do whenever we get our hands on some information, when somebody presents information to us, the very first thing we do is we consider the source.
Exactly.
And I'm prefacing all this, and I'm telling you, you want to be careful about this one, because the source for this comes from Breitbart, who, by the way, has a long, very well-established track record, not merely of being liars, but also of anti-black racism. So this is the very core of the white media when you think about it. I'm not going to sit here and say yay or nay on this, because it hasn't been substantiated either way. But I will say that given Hunter Biden's long-standing cocaine use, Breitbart coming forward with a police report that says that Hunter Biden apparently got pinched for a drug violation out in Arizona, and that apparently while he was out there, they checked the car that he was in, and among other things, among his identification, among his credit cards, among his Attorney General badge, they also found a meth pipe. And they also found a used bundle with meth inside. This was because Joe Biden had a car that he returned to the rental agency, and that's where they found it.
I mean, like, for real, they're like, yo, no, I'm good. Like, really?
Biden's long-standing cocaine use, this, regardless of the source, this story is certainly easy to believe, and I think that it's certainly
No.
so it's worth
Can't do
talking
that.
about.
Can't
At
put
the
that in
very
the
least.
news. No. Because then I'll look
And
bad.
as I said before, right-wing racist sewer Breitbart is reporting that they're the ones who got their hands on this report, and you can see a copy of it here. I would prefer to see this particular tidbit properly vetted, because the police in Prescott are not talking about this at all. Nobody's talking about it. I would prefer to see this properly vetted before we decide that we're going to be blasting this from wall to wall. But the point is, it is interesting, though, very interesting that this would come to light. Something like this would be reported. It's certainly interesting. Family, Joe Biden thinks he's getting away with murder here. The white media is hoping to help him do it. We got to make sure that he doesn't. Joe Biden must be reminded of his anti-black racist crusade he's been on. He must be reminded of Biden's law, the '94 crime bill that he wrote. And he must also be reminded constantly that his son and his daughter are lifelong drug addicts, and that they're not in jail, and that we as black people understand the reason they're not in jail has less to do with whose children they are and everything to do with what color they are.
Another big reason I was
Okay, first of all, long story short here, no, that's just not the case. That's just not the case. I can't let that one slide. That's not the case. That didn't happen. That didn't occur. We can't sit here and whitewash this. We can't do that. So I can't sit here and allow that to go on.
What did happen?
Bernie Sanders was never against HR. Let's be very clear about that. You can't find where Bernie Sanders was against it. You can't find that. You can't find that. Bernie Sanders wasn't against it. Now, if you all go back on my channel,
all that is
go back here on this
discussion.
channel,
It ain't
on
talking about
YouTube.
no
Go back on
plans.
this one.
It ain't got
Go
no
back
laws.
to my broadcast that I did on February 26th. February 26th. So this wasn't April. This wasn't June. This is February 26th. We had the town hall on CNN.
Yep.
February. And Bernie Sanders wasn't against HR 40 then. It just didn't even get mentioned. But he wasn't against it. Now, when he showed up on the Breakfast Club the next month, in March, he showed up on the Breakfast Club, it was like a week or so later, actually. The town hall meeting was like February 26th, February 26th. And then he was on the Breakfast Club. I got the program I did on March 4th, 2019. Bernie Sanders never was, quote, against H.R. 40. He raised H.R. 40 as a talking point.
Yeah.
He raised H.R. 40
cool
as
with
an
reparations
alternative.
as cash.
But Bernie Sanders was never against it. He was never against, quote, studying reparations. But then again, he was also never against, quote, reparations. So long as you never define reparations
As money.
as being financial. Bernie Sanders is in favor of reparations just so long as reparations is never anything financial. As long as it's never anything concrete, Bernie is in favor of it. That's the problem. He isn't. So this idea that Bernie Sanders was ever against H.R. 40 and had to be drugged to H.R. 40, he never had to be drugged to H.R. 40. Bernie Sanders is against cash reparations. He is for reparations so long as you redefine reparations to mean nothing. So Mike, no, that didn't happen. It's not happening today. Bernie Sanders hasn't come around. He is occupying the exact same position that he always has, and you all are trying to redefine that and reclassify it as a new position. No, Bernie Sanders is exactly where he has always been. Ask him in February of 2019 if he is in favor of cash reparations. His answer was absolutely not. Ask him in July of 2019 if he is in favor of cash reparations, and he is not. He is in favor of studying if there should be reparations. And if you decide there should be reparations, we should just make a government program that helps everybody. His position has not moved. His position has not altered. His position has not changed. And if the people who are around him and most advocating for him either do not see this or will not acknowledge this, we got a different problem. Bernie Sanders' position has not changed. His position has not altered. And it is dishonest to sit up here and say it has. His position is the same. Now, I don't know if he's pulled one over on Mike, if Killer Mike really believes that. Because quite frankly, in all candor, everybody was going for the HR 40 thing except Professor Black Truth. He and I have been talking about this for years. We talked about it under Congress. And then I gave the definitive broadcast. You can also check that out on this channel on March 23rd of this year. And if you are new here to the Black channel, you definitely want to go ahead and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on all of our programs. But if you go take a look at my program, oh yes, this year I was dissecting everything in real time. If you go back to March 23rd of this year, I did this program about why HR 40 is useless. And when Sheila Jackson Lee was promoting that thing after she had gone on Joy Reid's little farcical program, I was the person saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at HR 40. You know, I'm actually going to read what she's proposing. And then when you find out that they're going to have a bunch of folks, many of whom chosen by President Trump and the Congress, and that they're going to handpick and cherry-pick so-called academic experts, many of them will be white, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to choose a bunch of white folk to define what black people need. They're going to sit up here and grab little puppet groups like Cobra that have never done a damn thing and say that these are your reparations representatives. A bunch of people who've also made it clear that they do not support reparations because cash payment is the foundation of all reparations. And since they do not support that, then they are against reparations. So March 23rd, I dissected all of this then. My point is, this ain't new.
Man.
This wasn't April of 2019. This wasn't even March 2019. We can go all the way back to February. I was following this as it went along. I do not bring receipts, I bring invoices. I do not tell you what you paid, I tell you what you owe. And what you owe us is the real, based on what we see. So March 23rd of this year, I read the HR 40 bill that Sheila Jackson Lee is proposing and told you all, wow, this is a big crock of crap. After that, these other outlets started changing their tune about that because no one had actually read the bill. And I'm glad that I was able to assist in that way. I just wish that he would be a little more vigilant in the future. They were supporting this. And the reason that they're giving pushback about HR 40 now is because I actually read the bill and said, hey, this thing don't do nothing. And not only does it not do anything, it's a setup. It gives Donald Trump the ability to choose who's going to affirm this thing and define reparations. No, this is a big-ass crock of crap. After that, everybody started changing their tune about HR 40. This is an educational effort. I don't know if Killer Mike actually got enlightened about that yet. He might be under the idea that HR 40, he may not know the nuts and bolts, he knows it's a study, but he may not be aware of exactly the extent that it goes to. Now, the problem I have is that his comments make me believe that he is aware, makes me believe that he analyzed my program and that he's aware, no, this is really a toothless study, it's really a pointless study, and it's already set up for failure. To not actually do anything except say, yeah, we showed you need that. I'm through with the preaching to the choir. I don't want to hear any more crap about telling black folk we already know. Yeah, black folks was messed over and slavery gave us specific disadvantages and black people are in need of reparative action. Okay, we thought that's what HR 40 was going to do. Well, no, HR 40 confirmed that, yeah, you sure was right. You sure was messed over the game. Okay, what we're going to do? Well, we need to study what we're going to do about it now. I thought we were studying what we're going to do about it before. No, we're studying to find out if you've really been messed over. Now that we spent $12 million to study if you've been messed over, now we're going to study if anything should be done about it. Really? This is where we are. I have to serve the interests of my people. I cannot compromise on serving the interests of my people. So when I tell you the HR 40 is useless, I have to say that like this. But this is not new. This isn't new. This is where we've been. Bernie Sanders' position on this has not changed and has not altered. We simply cannot sit here and pass off the falsity that it is. Bernie Sanders is today where he has always been, squarely against reparations. He is for anything except reparations. He is for talking about reparations. He is for studying reparations. He is for understanding reparations. He's just against actually paying it. And this is more that benign neglect, sleight of hand, smoke and mirrors, misdirection nonsense, where white politicians tell you something that is open to interpretation and you assume that he means the same thing that you mean by these vague statements. As black folk, we have to be very specific, and we can't be coy, we can't be shy, we can't be cowardly about this. We got to say it just like it is. When we say reparations, we talking about cash payments. We are talking about direct financial compensation. That's what we're talking about. What was his name? Sunny Hostin. When she was talking to Bernie Sanders on The View, which you all know I talked about that as well. When she talked to Bernie Sanders on The View, she was, you know, really shy and really coy about it, and she didn't really want to sit up here and say it like that. She was just kind of shuffling her feet. I won't give her too much hell about it, but she was kind of shy when he brought it. When she talked about reparations. Talk about reparations, what does that mean? What does that mean? Reparations, what does that mean? Fortunately, she had the presence of mind to say, cash payments. She hesitated for a moment. I'm not going to take it away from her. She hesitated for a moment. But then she said cash payments. And that's where we need to be. That's where we need to be. We need to make sure it is very, very clear that our definition of reparations is not open to interpretation. You are not going to be allowed to interpret it. Our definition of reparations is very clear, very concrete, and very static. If you don't know what I mean by static means it doesn't change. So now you're all up to speed about what that means. But we can't be coy about that. Reparations is cash payments. It's not for interpretation. Because if we allow it to be up for interpretation, guys like Bernie Sanders are going to come along later and say, well, reparations can mean a lot of things. Once you let them get away with, well, reparations can mean a lot of things, now you're in trouble. No, you got to nail them down and make it very clear. No, reparations means one thing. And from there, we will carry it to the rest, but we're not going to allow you to substitute anything. Reparations means one thing. That is all. For these other issues, we will come to them following the foundation. The foundation of reparations is cash payments. It is direct financial compensation. That is the foundation of reparations. Everything else will come next.
I would never have seen him, had he not been pressed by ADOS, I would never have seen him say, hey, if elected president, I will sign this into the thing. I think that's a huge victory. Now, is that enough? The people say that's not enough, and we keep pushing, absolutely. But the fact that it was done, and it turned him in a matter of months.
Okay, now here's the issue I have with that statement. Mike says that he never would have heard Bernie Sanders accept this if ADOS had not pressed him. Here's the problem I have with that, Mike. Why were you not pressing him? I need to be honest about that, Mike. You had his ear. Why did you have to wait for us? If you agreed with us. Now, if you didn't agree with us, if you don't believe that reparations is direct financial compensation, then I can understand why you didn't say anything. Because you need to be caught up to speed too, and just go ahead and just say, hey, I thought reparations could mean a lot of things. Okay, if Mike was under the impression that reparations could mean a lot of different things, then there's a lot of folks who are living under those deceptions as well. If he thought of that, okay, fine. But reparations can only mean one thing. If Mike knew this then, if he did understand it as that then, why didn't he say that? That would be my response to that statement. Okay, why did ADOS have to say it if he had the man's ear since 2016? Why weren't you saying it then? Why'd you have to wait for us to come along and say anything?
I think he got hit up in April with when the ADOS member in the camera. And by you say May, June, he had already understood and changed that. Another big reason I'm with Sanders this go round, as well as the policy that I still believe can affect my community, even though it's not direct, and we deserve direct. We deserve direct policy. We deserve reparations. So I agree with you on that. But
okay, I got to stop you there, Mike. This is what I mean. Now, this is where we get off in the woods. Mike, you just literally acknowledged that, well, I agree with his policies, even though they don't help us directly. Now, dude, this is why I was going to all that stuff you were saying there before about vocational schools, decriminalizing marijuana, yada, yada, yada. Okay, but then he comes to this point and says, oh, by the way, that doesn't even directly benefit us. So those were thrown out first, even though he already knows, oh yeah, by the way, I said that, but I know that doesn't actually directly benefit us. Okay, then there was no reason to say it. There was no reason to say it. That's misdirection. We don't need to be misled. That's misdirection. That's misdirection. You cannot be so married to whatever benefits you think Bernie Sanders may passively give that we start accepting passive anymore. No. You know that he's not actually offering us anything direct, and how can we support this guy? He wants our direct support at the polls. People, a vote for somebody is direct support. You are literally giving them your vote while he's telling you, but I can't literally give you anything. I am morally and principally opposed to giving you anything. Well then, if you're going to offer us indirect benefits, we will offer you our indirect vote. How about that, Bernie? So all of us are dealing with each other on an even keel. Since you don't believe that black people are worthy or in need of direct benefits, then we are going to offer you indirect support. How about that? Killer Mike, I approve that message. Since Bernie Sanders refuses to offer us direct support, he's only going to offer us indirect support, we should in turn offer him indirect support. So if he's almost going to give us benefits, then we were almost going to vote for him. We are going to support Bernie Sanders only to the extent that he supports us. If he is against reparations, then we are against giving him the vote. But we're not going to let slick code words and vague phrases open to interpretation be weaponized against us any longer. Bottom line is what I'm telling you all is we're not going to assume anything anymore.
Yeah,
we're not going to assume that because they're using familiar catchphrases that we use, that now that they use that catchphrase, that they're going to follow through with the action that we have prescribed these people. Because you got a bunch of people using our catchphrases and using our language and not following through with the remedy. They just using them to get our attention, get our support, and get our vote, and then they get in office and like, well, I didn't ever say I was going to do what you talk about doing. I mean, I'm acknowledging there's a problem. Yeah, the police are gunning me down. I didn't say we're going to arrest police, arrest prostitutes. I didn't say that. I said we need to stop the killing. I said we need to offer police reform. You assume police reform was locking up police. No, police reform, I mean, yeah, they shot you in the back, but it was very unfortunate, but I think it was legal. Yeah, but police reform isn't locking police officers up. Not gonna lock police officers up. Well, I assumed that when I told you they were out here murdering us in the streets, you said police reform, yeah, we're gonna report the police, report treatment. We as black people get put in that trick bag because we keep letting people use the phrases that we use. And we have an idea of what concrete, vigorous action is. These other people are using those phrases and then offering us total inaction. Knowing that that's all that they're going to offer us. They keep playing this game with us. So Mike, no, we don't support any. If you know he's not offering us direct anything, why in the world are we going to sit up here and support this? We're going to sit around and wait? No, we're not going to wait for anything here. If he knows how to offer gays direct support, and white women direct support, and Jewish people direct support, he knows damn well how to give black people direct support. Let's stop playing games. Let's hold the same, have the same expectations of him and he that other groups have for them. You can do it for them. Don't you dare walk in here and show us the disrespect of not offering us the same damn thing. Otherwise, you're canceled, shut down immediately.
Had he not been pressed by ADOS, I would never have seen him say, hey, if elected president, I will sign this into being. I think that's a huge victory. Now, is that enough? The people say that's not enough and we keep pushing, absolutely. But the fact that it was done, and it turned him in a matter of months, I think he got hit up in April with when the ADOS member in the camera. And by you say May, June, he had already understood and changed that. Another big reason I'm with Sanders this go round, as well as the policy that I still believe can affect my community, even though it's not direct, and we deserve direct. We deserve direct policy. We deserve reparations. So I agree with you on that. But the reason that you'll see me ride with him versus the other candidates is in big play because of one of his co-chairs. And she's Senator Nina Turner. She's a black woman. And I mean black. She's
okay. Now, here's where I gotta hop. Brothers and sisters, black window dressing.
Yeah.
Nina Turner ain't running for president. This is more of that I march with Dr. King. Now it's I march with Nina Turner. This is the metric you're using to support somebody? Well, Nina Turner is there. Okay, he still ain't supporting reparations, so what good is that doing? There might be specific benefits that Nina Turner is getting by associating with Bernie Sanders, and there might be specific direct benefits Killer Mike is getting by associating with Bernie Sanders and Nina Turner, but those benefits for you as individuals not translating the benefits for us as a group. That's the problem. That's the problem. I don't want to sit here and play this game. I don't want to sit here and play this game anymore. This is a game we keep playing. This is a game. If Nina Turner is unwilling or unable to sit up here and hold us now, I can't do that. I'm not voting for Nina Turner. You're not asking us to vote for Nina Turner. You're asking us to vote for Bernie Sanders. That's going to be a big difference. You're asking us to vote for him, not for her. So no, I can't co-sign this idea that we're going to sit up here and do all these great and wonderful things for Nina Turner, for Bernie Sanders on behalf of Nina Turner. I can't do that. I can't do that. This is misdirection. This is misdirection. Either Nina Turner is the person we vote for or she's not. So who are we voting for? Are we voting for Nina or are we voting for Bernie? If we're voting for Bernie, then let's go ahead and do that. If we're voting for Nina, then we need to discuss that. But I don't want to discuss Bernie if you're going to sit up here and tell me we're talking about Nina. Let's just be honest about this. Right? I can't co-sign that one either. I don't co-sign that either. If I'm going to vote, show me the person I'm voting for. Don't sit up here and say, vote for Bernie because he marched with Nina. He marched with Nina Turner. Brothers and sisters, no. Nina Turner is not justification to give Bernie Sanders our vote. Nina Turner needs to run on her record, and Bernie Sanders needs to run on his. Not going to let Nina Turner say, well, I stand up for y'all. Okay, but you're not the person who asked us to vote. He is. Does he stand up? Is he going to make the same promises that you're making, Nina? Someone tell me where he's going to make the same promises that she is. And if he is unable or unwilling to do so, then at that point, Nina's presence is no longer any benefit to him. Don't tell me that Nina is here supporting you if you don't support the same things that Nina does. So let's stop hiding. Don't come on out and go ahead and say that. That's what he needs to do. Without that, this is a non-starter. No misdirection.
A black woman married to a black cop, got a black son as a cop, has worked with both sides of the aisle in Ohio. Ohio can be a bitter, tough, mean place. And
Okay. Nina Turner is a black woman married to a black cop. I really don't know what Mike's purpose was in saying that. I don't know why he would say that in this situation. I really don't. Because I don't consider that to be resume enhancement.
Those details on the vehicle
Quite
should
frankly,
be with you. Get it and bring it in for storage.
Enhancement. A black woman married to a black cop. Brothers and sisters, do you consider that to be a positive? I'm asking you all, maybe I'm just jaded and cynical at this point. Being married to a police officer, even if he's black. Since when did that become a positive?
Yeah, really.
When did that become a positive? No disrespect to Killer Mike, brother. Sometimes you can hang out with these people so long that you become indoctrinated and you become assimilated and you start seeing it the way that they do. So you got one foot in the streets and another one behind closed doors with the whisper talk here, brother. That doesn't reassure me I should support her. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. So, like I say, I'm wondering where a lot of this stuff is coming from. Not being as diplomatic as I can. Not being as diplomatic as I can. But brothers and sisters, I wonder if Mike really hears what he's saying here. Does he really hear this? And what other conversations been going on? Mike, this is not a good thing. That's not a plus. But he's sitting there with his chest poked out, talking about, yeah, Nina Turner, she's married to a black cop. Brother. Did you really think this over? Who have you been conversing with that you think that's a positive now? That you think that makes her less suspect? That what black folk are really looking for is more black folk married to police officers? Even if they're black police officers. You think that's what black society it has been missing? And if you really do believe that that's what black society has been missing, yeah, we got a hell of a re-education as a people.
I've seen her handle things with a grace and a candor behind the scenes. Why did we get sabotaged last go around by the DNC? I've seen her handle things with a grace and with the professionalism that I just hadn't seen in politics. I've seen cronyism, buddyism, bribes, livery, duplicitousness, and I've seen none of that in her. So a big part of the reason, besides the policy that I support, that I think and I've seen directly affect my community, has to do everything with that black woman that's standing as the co-chair of this campaign and what I believe she can do. Because I've heard the private conversations, and I know that the line is pushed even on you guys for help from her.
Okay,
let me get to the...
Okay, no, I gotta stop you there. Brothers and sisters, I might step on some toes here tonight. I might offend some people. I know a lot of y'all are friends with Mike and supported that and stuff. I can't go for what I just heard. Mike, I can't support you on that, brother.
No.
I'm not gonna let that slide. Now, this is where we're
Okay,
wrong.
looks like that one got away from
He's
us.
sitting up here saying, don't worry, behind closed doors. He's coming. Brothers and sisters, this is the definition of delivering the black vote.
Yeah.
I gotta say it as it is. I gotta say that I cannot betray my people's interests. This is the definition of delivering the black vote. What he just said and what he just did, that is delivering the black vote. But trust me, these things ain't being said. He just sat up here big up and Nina Turner talking about how she's so in the case of black people. But then talking about that the only area these things take place is behind closed doors. Mike, let me say this to you in no uncertain terms, to you, to Nina Turner, to Simone Sanders, to Joe Biden, to the Obamas, to any politician out there, black, white, green, yellow, or otherwise. If you didn't say it in public, then it didn't happen. If you didn't walk up to the microphone and say, my fellow Americans, this is where I stand on this issue, then it didn't happen. We're not going to play this game where, well, I said it, but I couldn't say it in public. He didn't say what he said about Jews behind closed doors. He talked about what his people need straight up and down. Okay, you need to give us that same type of support, is what you need to do. And if you cannot or you will not do that to us, then it ain't going to happen. Not going to happen. Not going to go for it. This thing where you sit up here and blatantly tell us that you don't have the guts to acknowledge us in public. If Nina Turner ain't gonna say this in public, why? But our vote is gonna be public. So once again, you're offering us vague generality. You're offering us things open to interpretation. I don't know what was said behind closed doors, Mike. That's the problem. I can't go with what you just said because I don't know what you all said behind closed doors. Number one, why you have to say it behind closed doors? Number two, why you say it in public? And number three, can you tell us what was said behind closed doors so I know what I'm supporting? Or you don't say, well, trust me, behind closed doors, close your eyes and fantasize. Whatever it is you wanted, that's what they were talking about behind closed doors. It was really supporting your interests. Okay, I don't know if you were because I don't know what was said. So I need to know exactly what was said behind closed doors. I need to know exactly what they discussed, and then I need to know exactly what Bernie said in response to what was supposedly discussed behind closed doors. Aside from that, outside of that, I can't support you because I don't know what I'm supporting. I'm supporting somebody who is so ashamed of me that they will not discuss my issues in public the way they discuss everyone else. Asking me to vote for. You're asking me to vote for someone who is so ashamed of me and so humiliated of me and so embarrassed to be in my presence that they do not believe they can discuss it, but they certainly want to discuss me voting for them in public. Once again, I will support you to the extent that you support me. If you want to embarrass to acknowledge me in public, I will be too embarrassed, simply too humiliated to vote for you in public. So we're not going to play this game where we're guessing it and guessing our way through it, and we don't really know what we're accepting, and we're just to assume that Nina Turner is the black one. Y'all play that game with Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama was Barack Obama's black credentials, and it turns out she was just as much against us and just in the tank against black people as he was. Her biracial husband. And she was just as much contrary to us as he was. We're not playing that game anymore, Mike. If Nina Turner didn't say it in public so I can evaluate what she said, and if Bernie Sanders didn't co-sign it and agree with it, then you get no credit. You get no credit. I need to know what was said. And for you to sit here and say, well, they said it behind closed doors. Trust me, they said it behind closed doors. Trust me, me go ahead and back it up. I want you all to listen to this again in case you can't see that context. Let me back it up and go ahead and
one of his co-chairs. And she's Senator Nina Turner. She's a black woman. And I mean black. She's a black woman married to a black cop, got a black son as a cop, has worked with both sides of the aisle in Ohio. Ohio can be a bitter, tough, mean place, and I've seen her handle things with a grace and a candor behind the scenes. Why did we get sabotaged last go round on DNC? I've seen her handle things with a grace and with a professionalism that I just hadn't seen in politics. I've seen cronyism, buddyism, bribes, livery, duplicitousness, and I've seen none of that in her. So a big part of the reason, besides the policy that I support, that I think, and I've seen directly affect my community, has to do everything with that black woman that's standing as the co-chair of his campaign and what I believe she can do. Because I've heard the private conversations, and I know that the line is pushed, even on you guys' behalf, from her.
I've heard the private conversations, and I know that the line is pushed, even for you guys on your behalf. Brothers and sisters, what does that mean? You see, you would immediately assume, well, Killer Mike would never insult our intelligence by saying that he's implying something. Brothers and sisters, we don't even know what he just said. What is he implying? He's implying something, that the line is pushed for you. I don't know what line was pushed for me. No, you got to tell me what the line was. Otherwise, I do not know what was said. Forget I don't know what to do. I don't even know what you said, brother. You ain't said nothing. Brother, you ain't said nothing. You can hang out with these political types so long that you start talking like that. And at that point, now your job has become to deliver votes. Killer Mike, brother, you didn't say nothing.
Man.
You didn't say nothing. You're talking like a politician. You're talking like the politicians and using the exact phrases the politicians use to misdirect us. Brother, you ain't said nothing. You haven't said anything. You haven't said anything. That was nothing that you just said. That was nothing. That was a great big air hot dog. You said nothing. And then just the goal now is to mislead you to think you just said something. You didn't say anything. Except, you know, some black politician who really loves the police officer.
Yesterday?
No, that's a plus. She really loves cops. She really is very comfortable with law enforcement. And if this is the person that you're putting all your chips on to be the black credentials for Bernie Sanders, and then what you claim she's doing for us, she won't even do it in public, and just take my word for it, she's really supporting you guys, even though I, Killer Mike, cannot or will not tell you what it is that she supported or how she supported. Now that becomes the issue for me. Don't come to me with this behind closed doors talk. Bill Clinton did that. Al Gore did that. Hillary Clinton did that. Barack Obama did that. Black folks play that game ourselves with Barack Obama. Oh, trust us behind closed doors. He's really fighting the power and raising the fist. That's a damn lie. And what these folks are trying to do is they're trying to test out whether or not we really learned the lessons of Barack Obama. And what they're clearly demonstrating is that they're willing to gamble that we haven't learned a damn thing. They're really willing to gamble that we ain't learned
shit.
They really are willing to do that because they don't really want to give us what we want. They don't really want to give us what we're supposed to get. So it's more misdirection.
You don't want this. You
behind
want this.
Closed doors.
Don't tell me what I want.
Trust me, behind closed doors, she's pushing the line for y'all. And he never explained what the line was. To which I would ask you all, you were in front of a gay radio host, a white gay radio host, a white female radio host,
You think
a
you could be in a
Latino
baby?
radio host. Would he have said what he just said? Would he have sat there and said, trust me, vote for President Trump because he's got a couple of Latinos on his campaign. And behind closed doors, they've really been pushing the line for you. Would he ever said that in the company of those people? Would he ever sat there and told a gay radio host, trust me, you know, Bernie Sanders, he's got this gay chick on his campaign, And behind closed doors, she's really pushing the line for you all. I'm asking an honest question. Would he have used that exact same phrase, the exact same thing he just handed to black people? Would he have handed that to David and expected that to be satisfactory?
Anyway.
If the answer is
No,
yes,
I want that.
well then I guess you can go ahead and support this. No, he wouldn't have done that because we've never seen him do that. The next question becomes, then why is he saying it to us?
No, you
He
see that
wouldn't have
green
done this
box
to
on
anybody
my
else. Why
square?
is he saying it to us?
You see the green box on my square?
So truth be told, I'm not here to hold Bernie Sanders.
that right there,
I'm not here to hold Mike's speech.
Yeah.
You gotta shoot as many as possible.
If Bernie Sanders
I'm
really got
trying
these
to get
pro-black, pro-reparations, descendants of slaves advocates on this campaign, I need to see proof, my dude. I need to see some proof because so far all I'm hearing is open to interpretation. The same old mess we're always hearing. Nobody is offering specifics. And Mike isn't actually offering us anything specific. This is just the same we've always been getting.
All right, man, let me get to some of these callers. They ain't here fired up. Caller, what's your name? Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Yes, sir. Speak to Tone, please.
Yeah, this is Tone. You want
One last thing, because I want to keep everybody with that. As the big meaning of it.
Some of these callers were just banging. They totally not here.
Right, a chance to get here. Phone lines are lit. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Chapel Hill, North.
I'm gonna skip ahead here because
60. Pre-1960, you have barely. This is what my answer is.
Spend the next 10 to 20 years talking about it and not do anything. So one of the things I've been troubleshooting.
Wait, hold on. You asked the question and start answering it yourself. Let me get it here. Let me get it here. So you ever seen a baby do a jumping jack? I ain't never. You ever seen one? No.
No, I have not.
All right, and this is what my answer is. The problem that we've run into is that nobody has ever established that ADOS is an identity. So fundamentally, post-1960, pre-1960, you have barely any black immigrants here. Basically, this is an ADOS population, bar few. 1965 Immigration Act happens. Between 65 and 80, we jump to 800,000 black immigrants. Between 80 and today, we rise up to about 7 million, 9 million if you count second gens. The problem right now that we have is twofold, and it's probably even more than twofold, but I'm going to simplify it. First, there's so much pushback to us formulating our own identity. We haven't even established the most basic criteria that reparations should go to ADOS. I mean, you literally have in Cobra and black Africans wondering why we're demanding it just for ADOS. I have no idea what they're talking about. The second part is just as important. You cannot start talking about appropriations because we haven't established the amount. You have Darity, who has established the range of it, but that's not how you actually start appropriating. You have to set out. See, reparations is not even a number; it's a transformation. It is a fundamental transformation of this country from where black men go from being the most incarcerated in the modern world to literally being functional parts of the most modern society in the world. That kind of transformation requires us to get honest about the fact and why ADOS needs to be established. You want to say something?
Nah, I'm in agreement. You preaching. I ain't doing number 8 minutes.
All right, bro. Look, man, I want to keep rolling. I want to get the callers in here. Thank you so much for calling.
now it's good to explain there about what it means to be American. It is good to point that out. It's also good to point out exactly why we're looking at these metrics. It's good to point out in Cobra. It's good to point them out. And some people were saying the tone, some folks who want tone to be a bit more, I guess, aggressive in this questioning. I would like to see some follow-ups on some of these questions here. You know, it's one thing if you're just talking to just anybody, but we're talking about folks who are connected to actual presidential campaigns. It would have been nice to see that there. It would have been nice. It would have been good to see that. Even though, to be totally honest with you, we have a lot of the answers we already need. But certainly a little follow-up on that would have been nice about that. That would have been very much welcome. But the next thing here I would say to you is, we make a lot of assumptions about what people do, and we make a lot of assumptions about what people know. This is not about moving Bernie Sanders. quite frankly, that's not what this is about. I think that this was actually a very good thing here because this actually quantifies something. I'm going to be bold enough and I am going to be brash enough to go ahead and state exactly what that is once we get to the end of this.
Colin, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Okay, so why is it we gotta bring all this data, and I get it, on the numbers, because we've been left out of everything. We've been prevented from day one.
If it doesn't have an apology and a range of at least we know it's going to be multiple trillions of dollars. Right now, my problem is whether it be Sanders, Harris, whoever, I believe that they're supporting H.R. 40 to avoid reparations, not to support it. That's my thing.
My thing is, I just think that, without it, this country, like, I just know this country, you know what I mean? I think without it, and my thing is, it doesn't have to go as, you know, you can amend it, you can beef it up, you can make it better, you could take the meat of it and add some seasoning. I just think without it, nothing ever happened.
Okay, now this was the part I wanted to get. This is another part I wanted to get to. They're talking about why do you need H.R. 40? And I want you to understand the explanation that's given.
Well, this is part of, I think, what's going on. And this is my pushback to H.R. 40. When you actually read the bill, I believe that it's very basic and bland to be have been here so long. I think that if it doesn't have an apology and a range of at least we know it's going to be multiple trillions of dollars. Right now, my problem is whether it be Sanders, Harris, whoever, I believe that they're supporting H.R. 40 to avoid reparations, not to support it. That's my...
My thing is, I just think that, without it, this country, like, I just know this country, you know what I mean? I think without it, and my thing is, it doesn't have to go as, you know, you can amend it, you can beef it up, you can make it better, you could take the meat of it and add some seasoning. I just think without it, nothing ever happened.
No, this is what I'm saying.
This idea that you're going to start with a weak bill to begin with and you can beef it up. People, that's not the way the politics works. The way that politics works isn't you start with the floor and then you build to the ceiling. The way politics works is you start off with everything you want and a bunch of other things that you're willing to give up, but that you wish you could have. And then you see how close you can get to keeping all of it. You don't start with a stripped down version and then start adding accessories to it. That's not the way that politics works. That's not the way it's engineered to work. You're supposed to start off with your maximum demands first, not your minimum demands first. Or you don't start off with piecemeal demands and then hope you can actually get what you need later. No, you start from the very beginning with everything you're supposed to have. Because if you don't start off with that from the beginning, what you're going to end up with is even less than you started with. So if we're starting with a partial bill, we're starting with partial tactics, you're not going to end up with partial tactics. You're going to end up with molecules, is what you're going to end up with. You're not going to end up with piecemeal. You're just going to end up with a piece.
I'm saying that because not to support it. That's my
my thing is, I just think that without it, this country, like, I just know this country, you know what I mean? I think without it, and my thing is, it doesn't have to go as, you know, you can amend it, you can beef it up, you can make it better, you could take the meat of it and add some seasoning. I just think without it, nothing ever happened.
No. This is what I'm saying. I'm saying that because the bill itself has been put on the table with no kind of a commitment to the person, just a basic apology.
Yeah, let's beef it up. That's what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying, if this is what it is, like, bills, this happens all the time. Like, a bill will get written, and someone will say, well, for me to support the bill, this has to happen. So bills are rewritten, touched up, modified, you know, transformed all the time.
Sweetheart, it's not about an apology, it's about having a
That's an admission. That's an admission of a
It's
wrong.
a legal right to be able to bring a claim later on. But like this is the thing that I see with the bill as it is. You have encoded as one group, basically saying that they kind of are taking ownership of this thing, and they're talking about Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
In addition, what you see is how many cronyism relationships do we have where you are allowing this bill to be used as cover, where you're not going to allow it to be beefed up. Because once it's beefed up, then candidates really got to support reparations.
Yeah.
Meaning, not even that it's going to be so if you add the apology and the fact that the range is 5 to say 15 trillion.
Yeah.
Now you get the question of whether you're really ready to sign, because they're not even ready to sign a blank sheet. It took ADOS to make them sign a blank sheet.
Well, Huey Newton said that the revolution is not determined by the vanguard, it's not determined by the leadership, it's determined by the people. And if ADOS has been able to do this in a matter of months, then my thing is imagine what you do in 365 days. Imagine what happens in 2 years. So my thing is keep pushing the limit. I'm not, my thing is I don't mind the fire being held to anybody I support publicly, because at the end of the day, I'm a representation of my community. And if my community is willing to be, it's my job to be a voice of my community within any campaign or within any organization that I'm working on behalf of the community for. So for me, if you guys have put the feet to the fire and have candidates that were not talking about this a year ago, all of a sudden, not only saying I talk about it, I support it, how do we push the line to get a stronger reform to say, well, not only do I want you to support this, how do we beef it up and you support that?
Caller, thank you so much for calling in. Hey, what up, Vic?
Now, the thing I would say to that is, it's a situation where, once again, if you start off weak, you're not going to be able to add anything to it. And now you're going to have to start all over again. As black people, we have to learn in politics, you make one big push. You make one big push, especially if you know that you are a group of people who are disadvantaged. You make one big push is what you do. Especially when the momentum is behind you. We got the momentum behind us right now. We're supposed to be pushing for everything. We're supposed to be pushing for everything while the momentum is behind us. But we can't wait until it's not behind us and then say, okay, well, we blew our wad, and then let's just see if we can come back later and try again. It's not the way it works. We need to do it now. We need to do it while you have the momentum behind you. You just spell it out in no uncertain terms that this is what we expect. This is what we need. This is what we're going to have. And that's just it. That's the long and the short of it. This is all. We're going for this. And without this, we're not going for anything. Don't bring us any half measures. This is what we need. And we can't be coy about that. This idea that we'll nibble around the edges, no, brothers and sisters, no nibbling around the edges. Nobody else is nibbling around the edges. They're making outrageous ass claims. We got non-citizens trying to make more forceful claims than we are. That's ridiculous. No, we need to say exactly what it is we need and make sure that if this bill is not to our liking, tell them no, you can't use this. You can't use this as some talking point. You can't say vote for me because I support an inadequate bill. Now, I want to come back to this here in just a moment because remember, this is not about holding Bernie Sanders to fire. There's a reason why Bernie Sanders allowed, I'm going to use the proper language, he allowed Killer Mike to go on this program to represent him. Killer Mike was allowed to do this. And there's a reason why he was allowed. I'm going to go ahead and get to one more soundbite here, and then we're going to take it to the next, and then I'm going to deal with the next part of this.
The last was because I was trying to call in, so I didn't know what you just said. I missed what you just said, but I can talk.
So I basically brought up the point that HR 40 is being used as cover to avoid reparations, and the problem that we run into is that in Cobra, as one group, along with the other entities, have become kind of a fixture. So when we talk about beefing it up, it's like, this is my bill, and there's nothing in the bill. Is that why we're using it? So what's your feel on HR 40? You did a whole show.
Well, I don't feel like HR 40 goes far enough. I don't feel like we have gone far enough. And that's a question that I would kind of like to pose to you again. Just like, thank you so much for coming through. Thank you for being so cool. I mean, those of us who met you at the Angela Project, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to have a conversation. Like, we recognize you as somebody who cares genuinely for the community. And I mean, we appreciate that because we don't get a lot of that, especially from people in public and popular spaces. But what I wanted to ask you, you know, I was listening to you talk about your background, and I was listening to you talk about the years of organizing, and I was listening to you talk about how now you're mobilizing. That's a long time, right? And,
yes.
And we know as ADOS people, we've been doing this so few about Nina Turner. I think my view of her, is that she wants what's best for us. But my question becomes not just the kind of influence that she is able to have on Bernie. My question for you. It's a microcosm of a question that I ask myself. So I would never ask a question of you I wouldn't ask myself.
Yeah.
So the question I ask of you is the same question as okay, we've been doing this. What happens if, like, if we get one, if what happens if none of this works? Because what we've been doing is we've been getting a little bit, and then they take it back.
Well, you know my philosophy on that. You know, you and I have talked, and I talked with Tony Cannon, like, you know, again, people out there listening, as a Southerner, just to be brutally, you know, to be a brute, as a Southerner, we don't ever think white folks gonna give us anything. So my question, I remember asking Tony was, I'm with you. Like, I'm with you guys on the charge. I'm with pushing the line. I happen to know that the line will be pushed inside and outside this campaign and other campaigns based on the ADOS movement, which is why I want to continue to bring light to it. But my question becomes to other black people is, honestly, do you garden? Do you fish? Do you hunt? Can you change your own brakes? Do you own a piece of land that you're not paying mortgage on? Like, because I don't, not saying it can't happen, or I wouldn't be working to make it happen. But if it doesn't happen, I still have to feed my wife and 4 children. And I'm not talking about just singing and dancing for people, because I sing and dance for people for a living. That's a very privileged job to have. So I in no way look down and condescending or saying, why not, or why won't you pull it up? But before I sang and danced, I just worked at the AutoZone. And I still had to fish for some of my protein every week. Before, my sister had a brother that sang and danced. She did hair. And she still has a garden that feeds 7, 8 families a year. So I don't know, sis. Like, I don't know that what happens on the other side of another political disappointment, because all I've ever been is politically disappointed. Now, we've had moments where we shine. A lot of Sanders' policy, I feel we can take some good stuff out of, that it's a blanket policy, right? But I could see boys in my community benefiting from trade school. But if I can't get that to get the boys to build the buildings on the land I buy, then I'm without. But I think for me, in terms of being a Southern black man that was raised by people that were 54 and 44 when I was born, my grandparents, since I don't honestly know if they ever going to give us what we owe, sometimes the best advice I have for my people is what Elijah Muhammad and Marcus Garvey said, which you have to do as much as you can for yourself. But I don't think that we should end the fight from getting reparations from government. I don't think that we should end the fight from pushing the line. And I applaud ABOS for not only doing it, but being like water and being able to move and transform and be what it needs to be in a time versus having to fix. You said something in Alabama that stuck with me and it won't leave me. You said, look at the Latino American caucus. They tell you pushing laws to benefit Latino Americans, right?
They just changed.
Yeah, okay.
The Black Caucus changed.
Exactly. The Black Caucus was like, we're the conscience of the country. I don't need a conscience. I've always said we elect too many preachers and not enough lawyers. You know what I mean? So as black people, which comes out of our community. So for me, sis.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. We have far too many damn preachers. Not really sure we need more lawyers, but we certainly need more serious people. Certainly more business people who are about the business of black people. But going back to what was just said there, what do you do if the politicians, if the politicians don't jump on board? What you do is exactly what we're doing right now, because that's something we have not been doing. In the words of Mario Savia, at UC Berkeley, I think it was, when his famous college speech, The Machine, when he said that if the machine doesn't serve the purposes of the people, then you've got to throw your bodies and your arms and your limbs on the machine and show the establishment that if the machine is not going to serve the people, then the machine will not be allowed to work at all. If this machine isn't going to work in the services of the people, then the machine should not be allowed to work at all. But I'll be damned if you're going to take the resources from the people and put it to work just for you, and then the rest of us are going to be out here struggling. Oh, no. What we're showing them is either the machine will work in the interest of all people, or it will not be allowed to work at all. And right now, the machine is serving everybody in some capacity, everybody except black people. We're the only ones it's not serving, because you have calibrated and engineered the machine so that it does not serve us. So the first lesson that you're going to learn is that you are going to put the machine to work for the interests of black people. You are going to do it without hesitation. You're going to do it without reservation, and you're going to do it without any type of chicanery or tampering. You're not going to pull any fast ones. The machine is going to work in our interest
or the machine will not be allowed to work at all. Well, Jason, what does that mean to you, brothers and sisters? That means all of the above.
No.
It means all of the above, however you want to define that. Because all of us just need to be on the same page with it. That's all. And if we as black people say the definition of not allowing the machine to work means all of the above, then that's all we have to remember. That as a people, we are about all of the above. You name it, we're for it. You name it, we're for it. But the machine will no longer be allowed to work. We are going to disrupt the elections. We're going to disrupt the schools. We're going to disrupt the economy. We're going to disrupt everything. Everything. The name of the game is disruption. But you are not going to be able to turn to us and depend upon us to be the happy slaves carrying the party line for our own deprivation. That's what's not going to be allowed to happen. You see, this is what you need a warrior class for. A warrior class answers those questions. That yes, we are in a conflict, and in a conflict, the number one rule of warfare is do not do what your enemy expects you to do. If the enemy is expecting you to acquiesce and to go along and to comply, first order of business is to stop complying. And then let them know. You don't have to even let them know. At that point, we start complying, and then we deal with the consequences. And then we start doling out some consequences of our own. But the first order of business is the machine will no longer be allowed to work. In 2016, we showed them the machine. We can stop the machine from working. In Ferguson, we showed them we'll stop the machine from working. In Baltimore, we showed them we'll stop the machine from working. In Los Angeles, in Watts, we showed them we'll stop the machine from working. And we will continue to stop the machine from working, only now it will be expanded to a daily course of events. But the machine is no longer allowed to work. It will no longer be led astray by entertainers, athletes, celebrities, all these well-paid people who get individual perks and benefits for themselves, while the rest of the society at large is left behind. That's not who we're taking our cues from. We're not taking our cues from that at all.
My thing is, whatever you guys, because I consider you the leaders, whatever you the policy that starts to work is what I'm showing up and I'm pushing and I'm working and I'm telling my homies, hey, this is what we need to be doing.
Now that was a very powerful thing that Killer Mike just said. And that brings me to the crux and the reason I'm doing this broadcast tonight. I want you to be very clear and be very understanding. I didn't come here to dump all on Killer Mike. I didn't do that. I'm not looking to Killer Mike for leadership. What I am doing, however, is upholding the standard. As a person, I talk about these politicians, I don't talk to them. If there's somebody to talk to them, then of course, naturally, if the closest we can do is here, send this message back. Well, this is the message that we're going to have. You're going to send this message back. They sent Killer Mike down here because the message got through. And what they needed was someone who could, they needed someone to test the water, to see just how troubled the waters really are, to see just how much tolerance for nonsense there really is. And what Mike is acquiescing to here, when he said, I consider you all to be leaders. Now that was a powerful statement to me. You see, brothers and sisters, the point I'm trying to make to you here is that Killer Mike does not lead us, we lead Killer Mike. The celebrities do not lead us, we lead the celebrities. You know, I talked to this years ago. In Cleveland, after Tamir Rice was murdered by the Cleveland Police Department, and we put the boots to LeBron James, put the fire up under him, to the point that he went from he didn't know who it was to all of a sudden they're on stage acknowledging it. We let him know that's not an acceptable answer. direction and the agenda will come from the source. It will not descend from the sky. It is an earthquake that will come from the ground beneath your feet. It's not a flood that will fall from heaven above. LeBron James attempted to fight the rain. The problem is, it's not a fight against the rain, this is a fight against the very earth that he stands on. You have no choice but to respond. And he wasn't the only one. Now that doesn't mean that these people are going to be permanently reformed, because you have to understand that they are, for the most part, they are controlled by other people. They get their daily bread from other people who are against us, who are hostile. So they're not going to come out here and gladly toe our line, our interests. We have to show them that it is in their best interest to appease us. Because if you do not, we can make things very uncomfortable.
I'm guessing you don't want a back rub. How can I help?
And that is
no problem. I'll get him off your back.
Let me be very clear. Bernie Sanders said Killer Mike to test the waters to see just how much trouble he's in. I'm referring to how much trouble Sanders is in. He sent Killer Mike to go talk to your people because I'm not doing well right now. They're basically saying anybody but me. I can't get a foothold. I was telling all these people that I was doing well with the black vote, and within a matter of days, I became the laughingstock for saying that, to the point I can no longer use those terms. I'm a pariah in black society. I need somebody with some black credentials to go and clean this up. So go talk to your people and go find out what they will settle for. And what he did was he went on here and he was talking about, well, you know, it's marijuana and education and trade schools, and found out, yeah, that's not really what we're looking for. Well, there's HR 40. Well, HR 40 is an air sample.
You might want to consider a bonus for your research team. They've struck gold. Or a para-aramid fiber and ballistic armor plating, to be more precise. It's not the sort of thing you can manufacture yourself, so the designs went through to Warstock and they'll sell it back at cost. Check it out.
I was a student, Dr. John Henry Clark, who taught us all that power is not given, power is taken. That the people who have enslaved you will never teach you to be a fully educated person, because a fully educated person will realize power is not given, power is taken. Once you are fully educated, you will realize that power is something that's taken. It's not given. You go and you seize it. You go and you grab it and you take it. You don't ask for it. We're not asking Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders for a damn thing. We are telling them what will be. We are calling the tune. We are dictating what we will have. And we are also telling them what will be the consequences if we do not receive it. And that is how power works. More importantly, that is also how winning works. Killer Mike came in the door offering us the usual tokenism, offering us the usual sleight of hand. By the time this was over, he's realizing, yeah, they really do have an agenda. And you really can't move. Now, whether some of you might think it was not articulated forcefully enough, I am telling you that based on that sentence you just heard Mike say, he is acknowledging he gets the point. He gets the point.
They tell you pushing laws to benefit Latino Americans, right?
They just changed.
Yeah, okay.
The Black Caucus changed.
Exactly. The Black Caucus was like, we're the conscience of the country. I don't need a conscience. I've always said we elect too many preachers and not enough lawyers. You know what I mean? So as black people, which comes out of our community. So for me, sis, my thing is whatever you guys, because I consider you the leaders, whatever the policy that starts to work is what I'm showing up and I'm pushing and I'm working and I'm telling my homies, hey, this is what we need to be doing.
So brothers and sisters, we're not going to take a victory lap, but let's just be very clear. He is acknowledging from the top that all of this talk about We don't have to listen to a black agenda. We can't just do things for black people. That just blew up in their mouths. They are fully acknowledging now that they must respond to the sword. They must respond to the people. They have to. They have no choice in the matter. They have no choice in this. They have to respond to us. They have to respond to us on our terms. You're absolutely right, Mike. We are the leader. Oh, you're absolutely correct about that. We are the leader. Or should I say, the agenda is the leader now. That is what is leading us. All we have to do now is adhere to the agenda. Brothers and sisters, I've told you speaking out for years and years. That old phrase that Muhammad need not come to the mountain. All Muhammad need do is stand still. The mountain will have no choice but to come to him. Brothers and sisters, all we had to do was stake our claim, develop an agenda, and stand. Stand firm. That's all we had to do. To show them that we have an agenda and we are going to stand firmly beside it. That's all we had to do. Now you are witnessing as everyone else is responding to us. Now that is not to say that this is all going to be solved politically. No, it isn't. But if you are going to have a politics, if you're going to have politics, then that politics needs to be clearly defined and articulated as to what are your interests. Our interests are economic, so that we can have an economic base with which to affect all of these other problems. And now they firmly understand that that is what we want, and they know that we know why we want it. Now that doesn't mean that they're going to fold. People, we've had decades of teaching these people that they can ignore us. So let me be very clear about what I'm about to say next. Sending Killer Mike to California to do an interview is not going to overturn or going to reverse or mislead us or steer us in the wrong direction. It's not going to do it. Sending him out to do one interview is not going to obscure our vision. It's not going to pull the wool over our eyes. We're not going to get that and say, well, congratulations, they heard us, they're responding, we can go vote for Bernie now. No, that's not going to be what it's going to be. That's not going to happen. You're not going to sit up here and march one of your apparatchiks out and then say, okay, we heard you. We're going to take your concerns very seriously. Now vote for us in November. No, that's really not going to happen. It actually isn't going to occur. Not like that, it's not. Not like that, it isn't. No, it's not. What's going to happen is we are going to tell you what the deal is. What's going to happen is you are going to adhere to the terms and parameters and requirements that we set. You're going to adhere to the exact terms that we have dictated. And if you do not, the machine will not be allowed to roll. Now, why is it important that we do this now? It's important that we do this now while white people are still the majority of the population. Why? Because they are the people who took it from us and have most benefited from it. I have no interest in having reparations taken from the pocket of black people. White people are the ones who took it. They're the ones who restored it. And that is what we're doing now. That's what we're seeing to now. But we're not going to mince words, though. We're not going to pussyfoot around it. We're not going to play. These are the terms upon which these things will be done. So what you witnessed is that the presidential campaigns have run headlong, face first, into a black agenda. And when that agenda is actually articulated properly, no, they didn't do the black Ayatollah thing, but then again, that wasn't necessary. A lot of y'all are looking to be entertained, and that's a damn problem. They didn't have to sit there and be entertaining and whatnot and come up with quippy comebacks and put-downs. The point was received. Maybe it wasn't articulated as forcefully as some of the rest of it were done, but the message was received, and what you just heard there, yeah, the message was received. Because Killer Mike didn't promise or offer anything specific. And in return, he was not offered anything specific for Bernie Sanders. Now that's the upshot of this. The needle did not move. I'll tell you, it certainly didn't move here. I don't know what assumptions Mike might have made after he left the community. Those are assumptions he would have realized, damn, the needle didn't move. But whether he did or didn't, we hear the real black media. That needle didn't move. You didn't actually say anything, Mike, because Bernie didn't actually offer anything, which is why you couldn't actually tell us anything. Well, you didn't tell us anything, so you can go back and tell Bernie that we're not offering anything, because he didn't offer anything. So he offered us nothing, we're offering him nothing in return. That's it. That's all. Not meant to sit up here and mince words or quibble or debate about it. This was a watershed moment in that you have a major presidential candidate who has sent out one of his representatives on the issue of black empowerment and reparations to formally acknowledge that they understand that things have been made very rough, they understand that things have been made very difficult, and they want to know what it is we want. Okay, what are y'all willing to settle for? What they found out is we're not going to settle for anything. This is what we expect, this is what we're due, and this is what you're going to have to bring. Otherwise, we can all just sit here and talk in circles. But until you actually offer something concrete and tangible to the extent that we expected, then there's not going to be anything more to discuss. Not going to be anything more for us to talk about. So there was really no reason to even go black Ayatollah at that point right there. It's like, okay, what do we need to vote for Bernie for? Education. Which way we about okay, education, marijuana, and then he acknowledged, by the way, those aren't direct benefits. So what that's telling you is that, yeah, he's heard what we've all said. Where are the direct? These are things we want, things that help us directly. And since he knew he couldn't actually offer anything direct, then it just becomes, yeah, well, you know, y'all are leading. Yes, we are leading. Yes, we are. Now go back and tell your master that we're not going to offer him anything. Go back and tell him that.
Hi there. What do you need? I'll take care of the food.
Since he has offered us the air, he will inherit the wind.
Looks like your pockets.
Tell him we said that.
When you finish what you've got, I'll give you some.
See how easily he can win a presidential campaign without
sure you need more snacks?
Let me tell you something. Donald Trump's people are energized. Donald Trump's people are energized. They are eager. They are chomping at the bit. They've got a candidate who's throwing blows, and bolos, and head kicks. He's doing everything they want him to do. You know, he's not accomplishing everything they would like, but he is giving these non-black people the business. And that was what they voted for him for. They wanted a nativist, nationalist, white agenda, and that's what they got. Well, as a black person, damn it, I want a black agenda. Because the only way you can counter a white supremacist agenda is with a black empowerment agenda. So yeah, Donald Trump's people have someone promoting a white supremacist agenda. I want someone who promotes a black empowerment. And just like Donald Trump's people don't have to argue with him over what that means, I don't want a damn politician I gotta argue with and drag him kicking and screaming as he sits up here and attempts to deflect and deceive and dodge at every turn. Because the truth of the matter is I can't vote for Bernie Sanders, Mike. And you know the reason I can't ever vote for Bernie Sanders? Because I don't trust him. I don't actually believe anything good is going to come from him because he has fought us for too long.
Are we going to have good recall?
I believe that Bernie Sanders right now is focusing on a strategy of bait and switch. I would not believe Bernie Sanders right now, even if he did come out and say that he was in favor of financial reparations. I wouldn't believe a word he said, because he has made it clear that as a point of principle, as a point of personal principle, he is against reparations for us, as a point of personal principle. So, I don't have anything to discuss. I don't want to convert Bernie Sanders. I don't want to make a convert of Bernie Sanders. I want to make an example of Bernie Sanders. I want to make an example of Bernie Sanders the same way that we made an example of Hillary Clinton. The same way that we made an example of Stacey Abrams. The same way that we made an example of all of these politicians who think that they're going to ignore black people and yet get black support. I don't want to make a convert of Bernie Sanders. I want to make a two-time example of him. I want to drag him out into the town square and hold him up as I'm getting ready to cat o' nine tails to flog him with. I want to make an example of him. When we put him in the stocks and throw rotten fruit at him, I want to make an example out of him. Because you see, he might be on a timeline, but we're not on it. My people's restitution isn't on a timeline. It is eternal, because it is in our eternal best interest. So no, you're not going to be able to sit up here and wait us out. And you're not going to rush us either. You come back when you got what you want, or don't come back at all. But you need us to support you a year from now. It doesn't really matter to us if you support us or not. We will keep pushing the agenda whether you are a candidate or whether you aren't one. And right now, I think it would be in black people's best interest to make an example of Bernie Sanders. That's what we need to do. We need to make an example of him. So that in 2024, the next candidates who jump up and think they're going to do a Bernie Sanders, what reparations is, and Elizabeth Warren, what does reparations mean? Or Kamala Harris, I can't just do things for black people. No! When we get finished making examples of all of you two-faced, fork-tongued bastards, when we get finished making an example of you in 2024, we will be taken much more seriously. We'll be taken much more seriously in 4 years after they see how serious we are with you today. We got to show these people that we are willing to sacrifice. We got to show them that this is how much this means to us. And when we show them that either you will put the machine to work for us or the machine will benefit no one, including you, then they'll start singing a different tune. But we first have to show them that we are willing to take it all the way. Brothers and sisters, you can't keep telling somebody that if they keep messing with you, that you're going to give them that work and then you don't give it to them. You can't keep telling somebody that if they keep fooling around with you, they're going to get hurt. No, brothers and sisters, what you got to do is tell them, you do that one, you're going to get your ass whooped. And then when they do it the next time, you don't say anything else. You just follow up with what you said you were going to do. Your actions must now speak for you. You make an example of their actions. And guess what? The next time that you simply say the words, don't touch that, everybody's going to be on notice. Don't do this first time. It's talk. The next thing that happens will not be worthless. That's how your words gain the gravity and credibility of an action. Your words are now as good as an action because you have made it clear to people that your words and actions are partners in travel. And up until this point, black people have not demonstrated that our words and our actions are partners. So let me make this very clear to all of you today. If you do not support a black agenda, our words are support a black agenda. don't do it, our actions will be for you to suffer the consequences. And we can all come back and have this little conversation again in 2024. Maybe you'll have some act like by then. But you know what? Even if you don't, we are still going to be pushing this agenda. Even if you don't decide to discontent. And you can trot out all of your black buddies that you want to and all your talking points and test the waters all you like. The waters are pretty damn hot and pretty damn choppy. That's all you really found out. But brothers and sisters, I want for you to sit up here and acknowledge that all of this work has borne fruit. They are officially, formally acknowledging that they know what the agenda is, they see what the agenda is. This interview is proof positive that we're winning. This interview is proof positive we're winning. And Joy-Ann Reed is losing. And Cobra is losing. The rest of them are losing. This interview is proof positive that we got this. And they know it. And that's why they're behaving the way they are. Yeah. At first, they attempted to ignore us. Then they attempted to impugn us. Then they outright attacked us. Then they tried to hijack us. Now, they are beginning the process of acquiescing. Because nothing else is gonna work. That's the bottom line. They didn't get here because they wanted to be. They got here because they were beaten. They've had to resort to this because nothing else was gonna work. Because you and me and us and we were never gonna move. Not now, not ever. They tried to play a game of chicken with us. They were driving a smart car, and we were driving an international Freightliner, 18-wheeler. They just didn't realize that they were the one driving the Fiat, driving the smart car. They didn't realize that until now. They thought they were driving the 18-wheeler. They woke up this year and realized, no, you're not driving the 18-wheeler. You're just seeing the reflection of your face on the grill of it, because it's coming at you.
You missed it?
That's where we are today.
I said,
and I don't say this to disrespect Killer Mike. I say this because Killer Mike, I want to say this with all due respect, and I know this is going to get back to you. And yes, we talked to you about being in the documentary and stuff like that years ago when I was doing Gentrified and whatnot. I wasn't able to get the dates together for it, and that's fine. They've never mistreated me. They've never been disrespectful to me. They've been nothing but congenial to me. And I'm saying this in that spirit. Killer Mike, this is not an attack on you. It's not a disparaging on you, brother. This is exactly what you were mentioning here before. I want us all to have a crystal clear understanding of exactly where we all stand and exactly what is expected of all. From this day forward, I want us all to be very clear about what's expected and about where we all actually stand, what we're going to do, and what we will not do. You chose the wrong horse, Mike. You're backing the wrong horse. It's not a thoroughbred, it's a nag. You need to drop that horse, put out its misery, and jump on a new one. But I want us to be very, very clear about what it is that black people expect. And I want us all to be very clear about what we are not willing to tolerate. We're not going to tolerate any tokens. We're not going to tolerate any pacifiers. We're not going to tolerate any more sex.
You gotta wait.
We have explained exactly what we want. We have spoken it in no uncertain terms. Come back when you can bring back it. Until then, this meeting is adjourned and we have nothing else to say. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to tonight's broadcast, both live and recorded, through the Super Chat and the Streamlabs. We are the Black Media. and I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. If you are new here to the Black channel, definitely go ahead and click that red subscribe button, and after you do, you'll see the little notification bell. Be sure to click the notification bell so that you get notifications when we're here. I also understand that YouTube is a devious, monstrous website that has been unsubscribing people from my channel. So you all need to go and check your subscriptions. If you subscribed to me before, you need to go back and go check it again, because YouTube has actually been spontaneously unsubscribing people from channels that they consider to be unpopular. And believe me, I'm at the top of that unpopular list. My last video that I did, Ice Baby, talking about immigration and naturalization services, rounding up some of the people who were supporting them for so long. When you go to YouTube and type in Ice Baby, the first two results are Vanilla Ice. The third result is my video. The third result is my video. So even despite their playing around and chicanery and trying to screw things up and engineer it against us, we're still breaking through on that. So if you have not subscribed to this channel, you are missing a lot. Make sure you subscribe, and always check back here every week for our latest videos. We do this every weekend. Eventually I'm going to make some changes to that, but for now, definitely do keep up with that as well. Click subscribe, click notification, and if you want to see a lot more on the next level, go to our website, blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com, and go check out our documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Ethnic Cleansing American Style, and our newest documentary, Race War, now on sale for streaming and by DVD, special edition, available on Amazon. Go to our website, blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. Don't miss that. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel.net radio program. I am your host, Let me go ahead and say from the outset that this is going to be a rather lengthy introduction to the subject of why it is that we have been deceived by the Congressional Black Caucus and the danger that it serves to have others speaking for you. If the immigrant blacks wish to speak for themselves, that's fine. But they cannot speak for us because we do not come from a common cultural or historical experience. We do not have a common bond, and that's what we're going to be discussing here. Now, this is going to be a lengthy introduction because I'm going to be reading from a book called The Tigers of Tammany. I told you about it before. And it's important that we discuss this in particular because you need to understand how white supremacy works when it's trying to erase a group of people, especially over a course of time, to carry out a guilt-free genocide. You devour them physically by killing them off or strangling them for resources so as to dwindle their numbers. And then along the way, what you're doing is you're devouring them culturally and socially too. Whatever they've contributed, whatever their culture is, you're eating that too. You're eating up whatever it is that these people are. You're taking on their practices, and you're taking on certain aspects of their behavior. Not because you like them, not because you're trying to continue their cultural legacy, but precisely because this is part of the devouring process. You're absorbing them in everything except physically, because you're trying to eliminate them physically, and you'll just have a few pieces of whatever their culture was because it's vibrant to try to inject some dying, desiccated culture. You see this all over the place, especially with those of us who survived slavery here in America. Foundational black culture has been just completely ripped off and appropriated, and his blood drained, millions of violations. But it's not here in the United States where this happens. You also find that there are white Australians and New Zealanders who will take on the tribal dances of the Maori people while they're wiping them out and still strangling them for resources. But at their football games, their little soccer games, they'll start off their games with doing one of those tribal dances. You'll have a bunch of white guys out there with a few of the black fellas, quote unquote, and they'll start off with a traditional Maori war dance. This for people who they're trying to wipe out. So just understand, that's how this works. Now, why is this the case? Now, every thief steals, but the really clever thieves, the really slick ones, the really sophisticated thieves, like white supremacists and their operatives try to do, is to legitimize their theft. Notice the wording that I used. Legitimize. I didn't say justify. A man who has not eaten in a couple of days and who steals some food from a market, that man would justify it by saying I was hungry. He's justifying the threat, but he's not legitimizing it.
On the other hand, when you have somebody who claims, yeah, I know I didn't have anything to do with the 15th Amendment or the Voting Rights Act or Brown v. Board, but you know what? I went to school because of those laws, and because of that, I think that I'm the best person to speak for all of you people who did fight for all of these changes, and, well, you know, I like Dr. King as much as you do, and hey, what about Malcolm X's mother, and what about Shirley Chisholm, and hey, Marcus Garvey didn't come out of American slavery, so if you had no problem with them, you can't have a problem with me. You got all these clowns trying to grandfather clause themselves into our history and looking for any flimsy, feeble tactic they can use to legitimize their own duplicity and treachery against us, because that's what's going on. You got people trying to lay claim to our history, trying to steal our place in the world, and they're trying to legitimize it, meaning to make it right. This is the right thing to do. This is supposed to happen. This is right. That's what legitimize means. Now, if you want an example of that, keep in mind, they're taking the playbook right out of white supremacy, literally. There's a book that I told you about, which you can still get online, called Tigers of Tammany. I've mentioned it in the past, and the main reason that I want to bring it up to this evening's video essay is because of the fact that this book was written in 1967. I got a lot of books that basically, a lot of them start in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, and some before that. It's a matter of why does Professor Black Truth collect all these old books? And that's the reason for that happens to be it's way before the internet, way before even those of us who were Generation X who grew up with the beginning of computer indexing. Before all that, you had to, when you want to do a history book, you had to go to the original archives. Part of the reason why so many academics or people who had worked in government, like at the Smithsonian and such, why these were largely people who were involved in the writing of these books, if not the collation of the information. Sure, you had to go to actual source documents, stuff that was kept in archives, stuff that you couldn't go to the library to get, because it wasn't in books that had already been published. The book itself starts off with a white man being inducted into the Society of St. Tammany. Now, I'm not entirely sure when this takes place. It probably most likely took place in the early 19th century. But the point that I'm trying to make is, Tammany is a Native American name. That's the name of a Native American chief. His name was actually Tamarani, but by the time they were done bastardizing it, that's Tammany, and that's where Tammany Hall comes from. You got a bunch of white guys here running around with an organization named after a Native American chief. This is typical of white supremacy. Part of how they legitimize their theft is by actually devouring the people through warfare. You're chewing them up to nothing. And then afterwards, you're also devouring their culture. This is the reason why cultural appropriation is so damnable. This is genocide taking place. This is what the world they're doing. They're not doing it because they like you. They're doing it because they're attempting to absorb you and erase you. And the only thing that will be left will be just a couple old wives' tales and whatever few fragments of what you did. They'll take away whatever they feel is dynamic and vibrant about your culture so they can prop up their own empty, desiccated, and dying culture of their own. But the truth is, it's vampirism. Now, the Tigers of Tammany starts off with the induction ceremony, and I know that this is going to take a while. That's probably the reason why I'm posting this separately. This is admittedly a prelude to the entire video essay regarding the immigrant Black Caucus in general, but I think that it's important that we go over this step by step because I want you to see how long this has been going on, because these are rituals and such that go all the way back to the 18th century. In fact, about the time that the Constitution was being written. So the idea of the Europeans attempting to try to appropriate the Native Americans in some way goes back way before $5 Indians. Now here's the beginning of the book. In the great wigwam of the island of Manhattan's, 2 columns of fiercely painted braves stood silently, their eyes fixed on the closed curtain. Behind the curtain, the sagamore of the tribe, tomahawk in hand, the badge of a soaring eagle over his heart, interrogated a trembling paleface. "Are you a citizen of the United States?" the sagamore asked in perfect English. "Etho," the captive replied, hoping to curry favor through his knowledge of the Indian tongue. "Are your intentions friendly and honorable?" the sagamore persisted. "Etho." "And are you a lover of freedom?" "Etho." The tribe's Kinky, a surly-looking brave with 2 large keys hooked to his belt, walked behind the curtain. He too wore a badge, This one depicting a great eye over a door with the words inscribed, "No slave nor tyrant enters." After a moment, the Wiskinki reappeared from behind the curtain and moved quickly to a door at the opposite end of the wigwam. "John Morton," the Wiskinki shouted to the door.
How can I
From
help?
behind the door, a deep voice acknowledged
No problem.
the name of the
I'll
white
get him
stranger.
off your back.
The Wiskinki returned to the curtain and whispered to the Sagamore. A moment later, the Sagamore emerged and walked between the two columns of graves to the door. He knocked 3 times. 2 times sounded in reply. The Sagamore returned to his prisoner behind the curtain. Suddenly, the wigwam resounded with voices raised in song. Sacred the ground where freedom is found, and virtue stamps his name. Our hearts entwine at friendship's shrine, and union fans the flame. Our hearts sincere shall greet you here with joyful voice, confirm your choice, Etho, Etho, Etho. The curtain was rapidly drawn aside. The man named John Morton was pushed forward. His path between the 2 lines of graves was lighted by 2 men carrying torches. Behind them came the Sagamore bearing a cap of liberty perched on the tall staff. As John Morton walked the gauntlet forward to block his way, the man in the middle, the father of the council, raised his tomahawk above the prisoner's head. The tomahawk came crashing down. In the nick of time, the Sagamore deflected the blow of the tomahawk with his liberty staff. "Sago, Sago, Sagamore," asked the father of the council, raising the tomahawk to strike again. "Sago, Sago, Oli," the Sagamore replied. "Is this stranger worthy of a seat among us?" the father of the council asked in English, still brandishing his tomahawk. "Etho," said the Sagamore. "Does he love freedom?" "Etho." "Will he unbury the tomahawk from beneath the great wigwam before his country's good requires it?" "Yat." "Will he bear adversity, torture, and death in defense of liberty, like a true son of Tammany?" "Etho." The father of the council dropped his tomahawk to his side. "Conduct him, Sagamore, to our great section." The small person...
Yeah.
The procession of torchbearers, Sagamore, and frightened stranger continued along its way between the 2 columns of graves to the door. "Grand Sachem," the Sagamore addressed the door. "This stranger has given the fullest assurance of his sincere intentions to support the harmony, reputation, constitution, and laws of this society, and it is therefore recommended that he be adopted as a brother." The door opened, the great Sachem, mightiest of the tribe, stepped out. A hush fell over the wigwam. The great Sachem glared at the paleface, then he spoke softly. "Friend, the favorable reports given of your character and intentions have recommended you to the acceptance of this society." The Sagamore handed the staff with the cap of liberty to the Grand Sachem, who held it over the head of John Morton. "John Morton," intoned the Grand Sachem, "you do freely declare that you will support the harmony, reputation, constitution, and laws of this society, and preserve inviolably all its secrets from the knowledge of others." John Morton raised his left hand. "Etho," he replied. The Grand Sachem returned to the assembled braves. "Brothers, are you satisfied with the declaration and obligation of the candidate?" The braves stamped their feet in unison. "Etho," they cried. Now the Wiskinki walked over to John Morton and bent toward him expectantly. Morton whispered in his ear, "Liberty is our life." The Wiskinki whispered back, "May you ever enjoy it." John Morton placed his left hand over his heart, and the Wiskinki repeated the gesture. Then Morton extended his left hand and interlocked forefingers with the Wiskinki in the Tamanial grip of brotherhood. The Grand Sachem spoke. "I now confirm you as a son of Tammany and member of the Columbian Order." The new brave was led to a leather-bound volume where he signed John Morton to the Constitution of the Society of St. Tammany. It was now 2 hours past the setting of the sun on the 3rd day of the 2nd moon, season of snows, the year of discovery 347, of Independence 63, and of the Institution 50. The Grand Sachem turned once more to his tribe. "Will you now be willing to lose this brother?" The braves stamped their feet. "Yat," they cried. Now, if you're wondering where all that strangeness was from, it happened to be part of the details, it happened to be part of the rituals that were kept by Tammany's membership. And it was donated to Columbia University in 1965. They kept records of these little rituals, who was there, what was said.
Isn't that
They
weird?
kept rituals of this stuff going back to the late 18th century. So if you want to know what the world was going on, why the Freemasons, white guys, have no problem running around in black Egyptian attire, naming themselves after Egyptian organizations, now you know why. Here these guys are, freely interchanging the names of Native American authority figures and an organization named after a Native American chieftain, but calling itself the Columbian Order. Columbia, that's freaking Christopher Columbus. So you see what the hell it is they're doing there. You see what's going on. This is important because I want you to understand this is what they've been doing for hundreds of years now. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. Devouring the cultures of the people who they come across and appropriating it as their own and trying to add legitimacy to their theft by saying, oh, we call our place not we don't call it a hall, we don't call it a temple, we call it a wigwam. And we don't call this guy here the president or the organization, we call him the Grand Sachem. That's what we call it. Or why, this organization was named after a Native American chieftain, so you can't say that we just hated the Native Americans and slaughtered these Indians. Why, it's more complex than that. Did you know that my great-grandfather was part Native American? I mean, you see the game going on here. Ain't got a damn thing to do with respecting those who they wiped out. It's all about legitimizing what they've done. And I recognize that was kind of a long way around to approach that. But the thing is, that's important to me because that sticks out to me, and I want it to stick out to you so you can understand how long they've been doing this. Now, on to the Black Immigrant Caucus. Pew Research performed a study last year listing the members of Congress who are either immigrants or second generation. But as I've always taught you, when it comes to us as foundational blacks, we have to do our own research.
Yeah.
We can't just be sitting here thinking that the people who enslaved us and that the propaganda arm of white supremacy, which Pew Research is part of, that they're going to be actually trying to do us any favors. White media, and this includes white think tanks like Pew Research, they're only going to scrape the surface, and mostly for the sake of legitimizing their program, not for the sake of exposing what they're really doing. Besides, their job is to protect tools of white supremacy, and few tools are as valuable as the black misleadership class. They are crucial to confusing and undermining our internal politics. Now, you see some of the usual suspects among the list, like Kamala Harris and Ilhan Omar, but you see a few others like Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, who was born in Brooklyn, but her parents are from Jamaica, just like Kamala Harris. Yvette Clarke has said practically nothing about black people and absolutely nothing about a black agenda. Sheila Jackson Lee has been exposed as the white power tool she's always been. Something about Jamaica seems to make them especially attractive to white power to be their puppets. Congressman Anthony Brown, he was born in New York, but his mother is a white woman from Switzerland and his father an Afro-Cuban. Congressman Joe Negussie, his parents are both from Eritrea. Congressman Stephen Horsford, born in Las Vegas, but his parents are immigrants from Trinidad. The problem with Pew Research, of course, is that as part of the white media, they don't go in depth. They just do a quick blink and you'll miss it mention and then run along. But this is the black media. We dig way beyond the surface. Now I'm going to do a quick listing of them off top, and then we're going to go in depth with each of them. Congressman Delgado of New York. His father is Puerto Rican. Congressman Anthony Brown of Maryland, who used to be that state's former lieutenant governor. His mother is a white woman from Switzerland, and his father is an Afro-Cuban. So how the hell did he wind up with an Anglo name then? Because Anthony Brown is neither Swiss nor Cuban. Well, they didn't do it so that he could seem American, because American means white. The reason they did it was to help him pass as one of us. because they understood exactly what advantages America was going to give him by virtue of his bloodline, which didn't go back to the plantations. Congressman Joe Neguse of Colorado, his parents are from Eritrea, and his wife is Hispanic. This man has done nothing, absolutely nothing for black people. He talks the same colorblind nonsense that he knows casual racists, read white moderates, want to hear. They want an immigrant who doesn't mention America's sins and crimes against black people. You can rail on about anything you want, except for foundational black folks in which we're owed. This menagerie of clowns, as I started going through their bios, it was like watching a non-stop monster movie, just villain after villain. Though it became particularly interesting when I got to Stephen Horsford, and yes, he immediately made me think of Stephen from Django. He co-sponsored House Resolution 15, a bill that would be giving blanket amnesty to all illegal aliens in the U.S. So he showed his top priority was and is not black Americans, not foundational blacks, but immigrants. His record is the kind of anti-foundational black nonsense you would expect from a white power puppet. But it was when I looked into his spouse...
Merryweather Security, really with another classic private militia cover play. They have what we're after, but they're masking their whereabouts with signal jammers. You take out the transmitters, find the location, and you bring the cargo to the hangar.
Sonia Horsford, a so-called academic who has a degree in educational leadership, whatever that means. She also majored in speech communication. Not sure what exactly that qualifies her to do, but white power doesn't pick its operatives based on credentials. She's currently a professor at Columbia University. See how Columbia's name keeps coming up over and over again?
Yeah.
When it comes to how white power is steeped, it's no accident that Columbia's name comes up so much. Because you want to know who else was a professor at Columbia? Barack Obama. He taught constitutional law there. Yep. These white institutions of lower learning have a fetish for biracials who they indoctrinate with all kinds of anti-black nonsense and then push into our community claiming that they're one of us. As you can see, this Sonia Horsford doesn't have much color to her skin at all. I immediately wanted to know where she's from. I can't find it. I wanted to know about her parents. Not much info on them either, except for a Twitter post that she made, which linked to an Instagram picture, a black man and an Asian woman. You know, for someone who's so proud of her parents, she's gone out of her way not to say one fiddling word about them. Now, you can love whomever you want, but there's a reality here. We don't live in a contextless vacuum. What defines the context of the world we live in are group power dynamics. And right now, all of those dynamics are controlled or overwhelmingly influenced by white supremacy. And black people, as a group, have no power. So when some type of conflict arises, it's a hell of a lot more likely that you'll go in the direction of your non-black significant other than that they'll go in the direction of black society. That's the reality. Are the interests of this non-black wife the same as the black community? Because we do have interests. The Asian community certainly has their interests, and allying themselves with us isn't one of them. Taking Sonia Horsford's parents as a case study, even if this Asian woman is the purest of the pure and the nicest of the nice, so what? She isn't in a position to lead Asian people. She is only representative of herself. This is why I don't waste time with black people who like to bring up their non-black friend who they're cool with, or some non-black boyfriend or girlfriend or acquaintance who they claim to be cool with. Your exceptional pal is exactly that, an exception. Your one non-black friend is one person, and you can't have an alliance with one person. As foundational blacks, we are a group, and groups don't have alliances with one person, unless that person is someone of the caliber of Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. We live under a system of white supremacy, and that supremacy is not defined by anti-Asian racism. It is defined exclusively by anti-black racism. And if you want to be more specific than that, exclusively anti-foundational black racism. And while you're busy looking for true
Hey,
love, white
how can I
supremacy
help?
is plotting how to wipe you
Okay,
and all the
okay,
other
I'll
black
get you out of
folks
trouble. No problem.
Not how to wipe the Asians out. They're trying to figure out how to wipe black people out. Also, when you look at Sonia Horsford's Twitter timeline, you see her pushing that fraud about a black-brown alliance. Gee, have you ever noticed how the only time that we see Hispanics talking about police violence against black people is when they're trying to finesse us into supporting more of them being brought into the country? When they're trying to finesse us into supporting what is nothing less than amnesty, then all of a sudden, they give a blink and you'll miss it mention to police violence against black people. Of course, what they never mention is either George Zimmerman or Officer Yanez in Minnesota who murdered Philando Castile, or any of the other Hispanic police officers who decide to enact violence against black people. Their names never come up. The same way that you can be married to an Asian person, but you notice when it came time for the Asian community to step up for Peter Liang, they did it across the board. Nobody in the Asian community was sticking up for Akai Gurley, who, by the way, was descended from immigrants, just for the record. You take a look at how these Hispanic communities have treated black people either in their home countries or elsewhere. Just take a look at how they treat black people here in the U.S. And then they turn around and say, you should support more Hispanics being brought into the country so black folks can get more such treatment. No, when it comes to the mythical black-brown alliance, the Latinos clearly get the better end of that deal. And yet it's a deal that Sonia Hornsford is advocating for. So Sonia Hornsford is only interested in what would benefit immigrants, legal or not. And look at this asinine little saying here. Tu Luca is my Luca. Actually, it's not. My fight is against immigrants who come to the U.S. to carry out anti-black racism and anti-black violence. Is that the fight of these Hispanic communities? I don't think so. And this is what a congressman's wife posts. None of this reflects what black people think. None of this reflects what black people have demanded. And people like Sonia Hornsford and her husband know that. So even if you want to try to say that Stephen Hornsford's not as bad as all that, you see what the world his wife does. While he's busy giving you some of Dr. King's greatest hits, he's giving you the quotable Dr. King, and he's sitting here talking about Jim Crow and other things that he thinks are going to blind you to the scam. You see what his wife is out there doing. Understand that the black misleadership class was an invention of white supremacy. They're not there to reflect our interests. They are there to get us to work against our interests or to sit on our hands while white supremacy continues apace. They are there to be the black face, to sell us white lies. They are there to always try to talk us into inaction when bold action is what's called for. So for those of you out there who think to yourselves that it doesn't matter who it is that you happen to be in love with, it does matter under white supremacy because nothing happens in a vacuum under white supremacy. And being a black person, you can't afford to go through life being casual. Your color matters, as does your bloodline. So the further your bloodline moves away from a foundational black, a survivor of slavery in the U.S., the further that you're moving away from our history, our struggle, and the common bond that came out of coming from a common experience. Your experience did not come from Asians who came over after Vietnam. It didn't happen. Your bloodline and your common experience is not with Koreans or Japanese immigrants or Chinese immigrants or Hispanics coming in across the Rio Grande. Your experience with people who came out of slavery. That's important because those Hispanic communities are not pretending that they've got something in common with you. Those Asians are not pretending like they got something in common with you. So why are you trying to pretend as if you don't have something in common with yourself? So no, I'm afraid that the Asian wife most likely cannot understand where we're coming from. And I say that based on the behavior of the group that she comes from. I look at the group's behavior, that group's attitude toward us. And then you look at Sonia Hornsford. She's half black, but you look at what she writes, what she proclaims, and she talks like any other white liberal that you ever heard. Hell, her books are co-authored by white people, so there you go. Congressman Horsford's wife has written all kinds of tripe, such as intersectional identities and educational leadership of black women in the USA. Did you catch that title? Intersectional identity. Now, haven't I always warned you about words like intersectional? These were terms created by white power and put into the mouths of black so-called academics. And you notice that those black academics usually come from a culture outside of foundational black culture. You got a bunch of people who consider themselves to be primarily LGBT, or immigrants, or biracials. Intersectional is a political term meant to attack us. Congressman Hornsford's wife is the typical white power shill trying to drive wedges between black people on the basis of gender, because that's why the Europeans enslaved us, wasn't it? Because our ancestors were all women.
Hell no.
You see the game that she's playing here? She's showing up and trying to push all sorts of dogma and ideology.
I'm not a puppet.
I know, I'm polite.
You want to know why it is?
She like
Because we have tangibles on the record now as part of American politics.
I don't give a damn. My mother's not a fucking puppet.
Women work together. They put aside all the lies that the Europeans were trying to use and decide we'll get behind this message. This is the same thing that happened in the 1860s and was successful to bring down chattel slavery, but it also happened again in the 1960s and failed because a lot of black women decided that they were going to fragment themselves and try to jump on the feminist bandwagon. And you see that people like Congressman Hornsford's wife are trying to figure out if the feminism tactic still has some miles left in it. She praises black feminism in her books and she rails against the patriarchy and all the rest of it. I'm sure there's plenty more stupidity from this woman, but I've seen enough. I didn't even bother to go through Stephen Hornsford's Twitter timeline, believe it or not, because seeing his wife's Twitter feed was more than enough. And if you thought the insanity from Stephen Hornsford's wife was outrageous, you ain't seen nothing yet. Next, we're going to take a closer look at Congressman Antonio Delgado of New York. As I told you, he's half black, half Puerto Rican. Now, here's a picture of him with his wife.
These are the Congressional
Not sure
Black
what ethnicity
Caucus.
she is. That's understandable because
all
she
these
doesn't
people
know
are
either.
on the Congressional Black Caucus.
4 years ago, Lacey Schwartz,
black immigrants. I think it's like 9 now.
She was born in New York City and raised to think that she was a white Jew. As she states in the article, quote, "I came from a long line of New York Jews. We went to the synagogue, bar mitzvahs, Hebrew school."
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, but her Jewish relatives and the rest of the Jewish community, they didn't feel the need to play along with what was an obvious lie. They knew she wasn't white, and they occasionally made little digs at her, calling her an Ethiopian Jew and the like. Lacey's mother would go on later to admit that she had indeed had an adulterous affair with a black man, which of course led to the destruction of her marriage. Well, it does make perfect sense when you think about it. After all, the word Schwartz, it does mean black in German. Hey, you know I had to mention that fact. And Lacey gives an interesting window into the utter chaos of being biracial and how confused they often are. Hearing her talk about race is like listening to two schizophrenics having an argument.
Damn.
She claims that racial identity is fluid and contextual. There goes that intersectional crap. That train is never late. She then goes on to say racial identity can change depending on where you are and who you're around. Now, in what world does that make any sense?
Really?
Tell me, at what point can Denzel Washington claim that he's a white man? After all, racial identity is fluid and contextual, and it changes depending on where you are and who you're around. So Denzel Washington works around mostly white folks, so he can go ahead and claim that he's white, right? See, the one-drop rule simply means that your status as white, i.e. white privileges, can be revoked arbitrarily. It doesn't matter if you're blonde-haired or blue-eyed and your parents came from Sweden going back 100 years, black person, or if in your bloodline, or if you're deemed to have had a black person in your bloodline, then your white card is revoked. Racial identity is not fluid because the flow only goes one way. People who wanted to be white but were cast off and thrown in the same category as black people. And even Lacey Schwartz knows that too. If you want to see how this woman contradicts herself from sentence to sentence because her head is so screwed up. Next in the article, she says two diametrically opposed things. That being biracial is in fact a category of being black, But then she says that it's an inclusive thing. Now notice that. You want to see how it is that white supremacy weaponizes ethnicity. They take people who they have basically taken their minds and just fused them and spun them into jelly, and then they take these people and say they're part of the black community. These people who are so confused and in many cases full of self-hate. And then you put them into the black community so that they can just cause all sorts of confusion and all sorts of disorder, because that's what happens. This woman contradicts herself from one sentence to the next. She doesn't know whether she's coming or going. She just got through describing being biracial as a one-way street, one that precludes you being white, but then she claims that it's inclusive. Now I want you to ask yourself this question. What attracted Antonio Delgado to this woman? A woman who thinks race is fluid. Acknowledges, however, that this fluidity only goes one way, but still insists that it's inclusive somehow. Inclusive of what and of who? How do you push a black agenda with a man who is clearly running from blackness and a woman who thinks black is whatever you want it to be? This is who and what white power installed as the black misleadership class. This is what's wrong with the Congressional Black Caucus. This is who claims to speak for you and me. What do we have in common with this menagerie of self-hating anti-black lunatics? Even the members of the CBC who are not necessarily immigrants or descended from immigrants, at least not that we found yet, they keep all the damn time for immigrants. Cedric Richmond of Louisiana went on Twitter and he was demanding that illegal aliens from Vietnam be protected from deportation because they played a major role in my district and in cities all across America. Well, you can tell that there happens to be a couple of campaign contributions, but the thing is, this is about more than money. The reason this Richmond clown is talking like this is because of ideology. This guy is trying to basically bury the black community. He's trying to ignore the black community. This guy wants to make it clear to his white paymasters, I know what my job is. I'm going to carry water for white supremacy. I'm not here to represent black folks. I want them to just be completely and thoroughly ignored. And this stance is doubly stupid because there is no Vietnamese voting bloc in Louisiana. It's literally almost entirely black and white. Sure, there's a few enclaves, especially in South Louisiana, but not enough to matter electorally. But this guy doesn't give a damn about the black part of his constituency. How about Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of the Congressional Black Talkers? His uncle is the esteemed Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Yes, that Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Well, the apple fell far from the tree on this one. Then you got Congresswoman Johanna Haynes. The white media was so eager to praise her as being a teacher, but that's not true. She's actually an administrator now. She hasn't been a teacher in forever, but the white media calls her a teacher anyway. This reminds me of the whole Joe the Plumber con that the Republicans tried back in 2008. However, the white media is not so eager to mention that Johanna Haynes' husband is a cop. Kind of reminds you of how frequent MSNBC mouthpiece Jason Johnson's mother is in law enforcement, but that doesn't get mentioned much. And of course, we must deal with the stupidity of Ayanna Pressley. Remember how she made a proper fool of herself.
Hey, okay. That's the cargo, and we've got even more good news. Warstock is discounting one of their new aircraft for us. Take a look on their site and see.
She's trying to raise her own pathetic profile. She was out there with Ilhan Omar and that Tlaib woman and Alexandria Cortez. Ayanna Pressley's not an immigrant. She's not even the children of immigrants, nor the grandchild of immigrants. So far, she seems to basically be descended from foundational blacks, though you damn sure couldn't tell by how she was out there caping for immigrants. This is a disgrace for her to do that, because you damn sure don't see that Tlaib woman holding press conferences about the treatment of black people held without trial and often dying behind bars. You take a look at the infamous Rikers Island. How many of those prisoners there kept in solitary confinement, sometimes often for years? How many of them are black? How many of them did that Tlaib woman say one piddling word for? And yet you got Ayanna Pressley putting on the cape for people who aren't even American citizens. Where was Ilhan Omar at to demand prosecution for police or self-appointed killers of black people? Where was she at? Hell, this woman couldn't even be bothered to stick up for a fellow Somalian, Mohammed Noor. Not even a police do a dangerous job and Blue Lives Matters from her. You've got to balance the taken with the given, family, and I only do business with others to the extent that they do business with me. If you stick up for me a lot, then I'll stick up for you a lot. You only stick up for me a little, or only when you want something from me, then I'm only going to stick up for you a few times, or only when I'm trying to get something. And if you don't stick up for me at all, then you can guess how often you're going to see me, especially when Donald Trump comes through. But from these immigrant communities, their behavior towards foundational blacks goes far beyond merely not sticking up for us. From Koreans who murder black children allegedly over shoplifting, to Latinos who murder black teenagers over a can of iced tea, at what point do they acknowledge our humanity and stick up for us? When are we going to see these immigrant communities out there campaigning for us? We've already seen the answer, and it is never. Because those immigrant Asians did not have one word of sympathy or support for Akai Gurley. Why? Because as far as they were concerned, he was killed by an Asian, so right or wrong, they're sticking with Peter Liang. And for Ayanna Pressley to do this is a damnable thing, one that she shouldn't be forgiven for. The white media will use this unthinking twit and present her as speaking for all of us. This is why you need the black media. I told you white power invested its enormous resources into creating entire constellations of black tools. The black bootlicks in the media are just one of them, and Ayanna Pressley is another. This black bootlicking government is going to be reported on by a black bootlick on CNN like Don Lemonade or MSNBC like Joy Reid, and then they'll be cheered on by some black bootlick like D-Ray McKeeson or She the People. This is supposed to be what passes for black grassroots, at least as the white media tries to present it. Well, we've got to overturn this con. We have to dedicate ourselves to cleaning house. You cannot repair the black misleadership class any more than you can repair white supremacy. The festering black cabal of politicians who
we might have to work alongside Merriweather, but we don't want them packing railguns. Not in this country, anyway. Go to their docks HQ and take what you can. That's your resupply.
Membership, I hope it's a little more clear why that is. When I say white power has used its vast resources to create and set up entire constellations of black bootlicks to do their bidding, the Congressional Black Talkers are just a prime example. Now, you probably thought that the problem was just limited to a few bad apples. Or perhaps it was just some people who didn't understand what policies we need because they've been inside the Beltway too long. Or maybe it's just a few old men with a few old ideas that's the problem. Just old men with old ideas. The problem is the entire Congressional Black Caucus itself, because they were created by white supremacy and not created by black empowerment. They are populated, staffed, and overrun with a whole bunch of people whose interests happen to be immigrants, LGBT, trying to make themselves acceptable to white power, anything except for black empowerment. That's the problem. We have no common bond with somebody like a Joe Neguse. We have no common bond with an Anthony Brown. We don't share any common ground with people like Stephen Horsford. We have no common ground with them. We have no common history. We have no common achievements. We have no common ideology, and we have no common goals. We are completely alien and separate to one another. We have to be honest about that reality. So why the world is it, then, that we allow these individuals to try to palm themselves off as one of us? It's because the definition of black basically was a polyglot. We allowed white power to basically say that anybody who's black basically is beneath us, and because of that, power had no concern or no use for these immigrants or biracials, and that wasn't true at all. White power didn't want them among them, but it's not that white power had no plans for them and had no use for them. White power was looking at these individuals who they threw among us as being tools to help disrupt our internal politics and throw us into disarray and keep us completely and thoroughly politically confused, and that's exactly what they've done. So these guys, they have served a very important purpose for white supremacy. Well, it's time for us to bring that purpose to an end. This is the reason why disengaging from the electoral fraud of American politics is so important. We have to have foundational blacks who have bent the knee and taken the pledge to black empowerment, supporting and representing us. You shouldn't be voting for anyone unless that person came to you, bent the knee, and has taken the pledge. And he has to be a foundational black. That's just the reality. Because when you have a Stephen Horsford who shows up and his wife is sitting here talking that intersectionality crap, she shares no common ground with us. She's working against our interests. Stephen Horsford, if he wants to represent Trinidadians, let him go do that. And we'll see how many congressional seats he gets. And if Anthony Brown wants to represent the Swiss contingent of Americans or the Afro-Cubans, let him go down to Florida. He'll have to leave Maryland, that's for sure. He won't be able to find much voter support in Maryland. Let him go down to Florida. We'll see if he finds a big number of Afro-Cubans there, and then see if they can get him into any offices. No, let them represent the people who they share common ground with. And we will be represented by the ones who we share common ground with, because the black community is no longer going to be a stepping stone to a life of comfort and wealth and privilege for some hand-picked con men and con women. That day is done. We are no longer going to be subsidizing our oppression by empowering those who white power sent among us for the sake of holding us down. The Congressional Black Talker's job is to present the black community to the world as being one giant black man. On the plantation, the black mammy cared for everyone except for her own children. She took care of Massa's children, and if Massa had some next-door neighbors, she would go ahead and make sure that their kids were nursed as well. She took care of everybody's babies except for her own. This is the job of the Congressional Black Caucus, to present black people as caring about everyone else's interests except our own, being concerned for everyone else's welfare except our own. Because when the white media presents somebody like a Cedric Richmond to the world saying, we got to care about the Vietnamese community, well, when black folks are left with empty pockets, destitute in the streets, well, they can't be too concerned about that, why their own representatives don't care. And when Maxine Waters and Kamala Harris are not out there on the warpath for black people's tangibles, well, when you look at Skid Row in Los Angeles, which is overwhelmingly black, that's where the black folks went to. You want to know what happened to the black community in LA? Check out Skid Row. That's where they all went. That's where they got sent to. But how are you going to be framing that in terms of racial injustice when your own black representatives don't say boo about it? And that's the point. Black people chose these leaders and they don't say anything, except the thing is we didn't actually choose. What happened was we took the path of least resistance. We didn't actually want these clowns, but the problem is we've been indoctrinated with the idea of you've got to vote, too many people have died, etc., etc. And then what happens is, instead of us fielding our own candidates, what happens is white power comes along and says, you don't have to. Why? You got this Joe Ducey over here, and he's going to talk about how hard it was for him as a black immigrant, but he'll only say black immigrant in front of you. When he gets in front of white folks, it'll just be immigrants, or he'll just be talking about how America did so much and he's so grateful. The grateful Negro shtick is what he'll be doing for white people. He'll only talk halfway black when he's in front of you to see if you're silly enough to fall for it. And Kamala Harris will go ahead and sing you a couple of bars about how she was a second or third class to integrate her school, etc., etc. They'll do that. And then somehow you're supposed to think that they're down with the community. And you need to go and vote for them because somehow you're going to get something out of that. Politics is a business transaction, plain and simple, full stop, quid pro quo. You want my vote, I want tangibles, and an ongoing commitment to supply more tangibles. Because that's what voting is about. It's about who gets what. Out of whatever resources the country has, how's it going to be divided? Well, let's hold a vote on it. That's what voting is supposed to be about, but it damn sure doesn't work that way for black people. We've got to put an end to that. Stop playing along with a game that's deliberately rigged so that you get left out. You got to take control of the situation. No more letting white supremacy present to you their slate of hand-picked puppets, and then you choose from white supremacist candidate A or white supremacist candidate B. Time for you to change it and put a black empowerment candidate on the ballot. You cannot vote for any of these clowns anymore. Now that you know their freaking names, you can't be voting for these people anymore. What have the immigrants presented to us that is of such value that we should do something as monumental as condone them breaking the law by stealing their way into the country? Why the world should we be supporting immigration, period? What's in it for us? As immigrants, what's in it for black people? What are you presenting to us as tangible? What are you going to do for me? So understand that when it comes to the immigrant black caucus, it's not even totally about their foreign ancestry. These guys, just as a group, they are tools of white supremacy. And that's how they see themselves. They see themselves as Latinos and immigrants and islanders and boule. That's how they see themselves. This is why they go nuts trying to represent immigrants, people who aren't even in their districts, but they go out of their way to ignore or even show open contempt for foundational black Americans. Now you see why the so-called Congressional Black Caucus doesn't give a damn about us, and they're always so eager to jump out there for immigrants, because that's what these con artists are. The point of having a Congressional Black Caucus is supposed to be so that there's a group representing the interests of black people, starting with the ones who are already here and who have been here from day one. Instead, this gang of liars and con men are there to represent their home country or the ones their parents came from. They pride themselves on not being one of us. So we ought to make sure that this distinction is made loud and clear. These immigrant blacks simply cannot speak for us, and they should not speak for us. Since they're so obsessed with immigrants, then that's who they need to go represent. But they cannot represent us. This immigration advocacy violates the will of the black community. Like it or not, and I know there's people who don't like it, but that's the way it is. We didn't vote for these guys to represent Latin America. We voted for them to represent Black America. While Ayanna Presley's asinine display disgusts me, it doesn't surprise me. White media is the mouthpiece for established white power. They see what we're doing and the impact that it's been having. So what you see is them trying to manufacture one high-profile media extravaganza after the next in the hopes of trying to get attention on their black bootlegs. This is white power's way of trying to counter-program. They see that we're reaching black folks, the right black folks, the black people who are going to get off their butts and change things. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to put up some distractions now. Oh, look, we got some actors and a couple of do-nothing academics. And they're saying that black folks don't need a check for reparations. That's the big message we got taken away from that con game, that fraud for reparations that took place on Capitol Hill a few weeks back. The takeaway, black folks, why we got some Negroes here who are saying that black folks don't want a check. In fact, they didn't actually say what black people wanted at all. That seemed to be the point. They see what we're doing. We are teaching our people the essential selfishness of survival, as Dr. John Henrik Clarke beautifully put it. We've taught our people that it's not okay to support people who do not support us by name specifically. We've seen black bootlegs like Big Bird and Roly Poly and Goldie Taylor brought low. We cut the legs out from under presidential candidates. We're getting serious with all the people who have been attacking us. The only way to stop this process is if the white media can convince us that Donald Trump's Twitter tweets are more important than our tangibles. Trump doesn't represent your interests, but neither do the Democrats, and definitely not these immigrants. We have no friends. None. Is Donald Trump a racist? Of course he is. But at least he's an honest racist, and I don't give him points for that. He's never going to get my vote. But that doesn't distract me. It doesn't fool me into thinking, oh, I got Donald Trump being a loud and proud racist. So that's certainly worse than these quiet and meek racists over here calling themselves Democrats. Neither one of them's on our team. So we're holding out for something better. We're holding out for a black agenda being pushed and presented by our own representatives. The problem the white media sees isn't our refusal to back immigration. It's our determination to push for economic power for ourselves. They absolutely have to get us off of that issue. So we see they're stepping up the propaganda. They're flooding the airwaves now and the online sphere with political theater like this. They have a gargantuan advantage in media outlets over us. So for every one video essay or one social media post that we put up, they can post 100 or more lies. So how is it that we've made the progress on pushing these issues that we've made so far? It's because we've got an equalizer. You. Yeah, the bad guys may have us outgunned, but we've got them outclassed. You've got to support the new voices of black media. If we don't push your interests, if we don't curate and direct the social discourse in the black community, then we go back to the toilet of Charlemagne the Fraud and Roly-Poly Martin doing all the talking. Now, what is to be done when it comes to chumps like Antonio Delgado, someone who has a foreign parent and someone whose bloodline also goes back to the plantations? What's to be done then? After all, didn't Malcolm have a foundational black father? Yes, he did. But let's not conflate the standard for reparations with the standard for whether or not we as a community will allow you to speak for us. Being eligible for reparations doesn't mean you're eligible for the black family's respect, and we have to get serious about enforcing that principle. You see, the reason that I started off with that Tigers of Tammany account was that you understand, yeah, the white guys were sitting here doing their little cosplay. We are Indian braves and this is our wigwam, whatever. But when it came time to talk turkey, they were not talking in the terms of Native Americans. They were talking in the terms of Europeans. Talking about defending our country. Native Americans didn't believe in country. They didn't believe that you can actually own the land. And talking about will you defend and hold up our particular constitution. You see, they were talking about a value system. And that value system was and is white supremacy. That's what they wanted to be sure of. You couldn't just walk into the Society of St. Tammany and say, I'm a good white man and I think y'all ought to let me in. Show me the secret handshake. They'd be like, what's this Society of St. Tammany you're talking about? What's this Order of Columbus you referred to? We don't even know. What are you talking about? They would ignore you and they would pretend ignorance. Or they might decide to take up the freaking tomahawk and open your mind full. See, they understand that there's rules and regulations that go along with every group. Every group has some standard of decorum, some standard rules, some code of conduct.
Anybody ain't allowed this.
See, that's what the whole ritual by the Society of St. Tammany was meant to do. It was meant to begin the process of there's a code of conduct that goes along with our group. That's why they said you're not to discuss what goes on here on the outside. What happens inside these walls of our wigwam, it stays here. And you got to be ready to die for this. That's what they pointed out. Are you ready to die for this? And that's the reason why they did it the way that they did. First question, is this stranger worthy of a seat among us? First thing out of the gate, is this guy even supposed to be here? Man, what do we know about this fool? Who's his people?
Nice work. Your technicians are already breaking that down.
And then next they asked, and this lets you know how the European thinks, they asked, will he unbury the tomahawk from beneath the great wigwam before his country's good requires it? That's one of the things that Native Americans allegedly did. They bury a tomahawk into a tree, and the tomahawk is not to be retrieved until after the war is over. So right after the European asked whether or not this guy even should be here, the very first question is this guy ready to go to war? Let's you know what the European was thinking. This ain't about peace, this ain't about friendship, this ain't about Native American culture, this is about reinforcing the European's war culture, because that's how he got the world and how he intends to keep it. So first order of business, is this guy ready to go to war and he we've won, so we've taken everything that we want? And then next they asked, will he bear adversity, torture, and death in defense of liberty? Remember, liberty, I educated you guys on what liberty means. Liberty means power. Because everything that the European talks about as being their liberties, these are the things that black people recognize as being power. We simply talk about, I want to be able to do what I want, etc., etc. That ain't what the European means. It's a matter of I can take what I want, do whatever I want to whomever I want. And I have the ability to use unrelenting violence to get what I want. That's his liberty. And I get to have my violence held on a pedestal and held up for glorification and worship. That's what he thinks of as liberty. What you think of as liberty, he sees as a threat. He should. But that's what they started off with. They've started asking, putting people on notice, should this guy be here? Is this somebody who's going to call for peace when we've already said we're going to war? Is this somebody who the enemy will be able to torture into submission? Is this somebody who will bear adversity for this group? Will he endure torture for this group? Will he die for this? You see, Tammany Hall ruled New York with an iron fist for 200 years. Everybody's familiar with Boss Tweed. But what they're not familiar with is the fact that Tammany Hall started 100 years before Boss Tweed even came along. He was just the most corrupt one that they had. And Tammany Hall, at least in name, Tammany Hall endured all the way up to the 1960s. And by the way, before I forget, I do think that it bears noting that, did you know that Tammany Hall actually had a black Grand Sachem? Now, I know that's going to come as a surprise to a lot of you guys. Did you know that? J. Raymond Jones. This guy was the first and only black head of Tammany Hall, which, of course, as we know with Barack Obama, when they sit there saying the black man's in charge, I mean, he ain't in charge of nothing. It was just them taking a last-ditch effort at trying to sanitize their image. But Tammany Hall, yeah, they started off with a bunch of white guys cosplaying as Native Americans, and they ended with a black man cosplaying as a European. But you see what's going on here, though. Nonetheless, as far as they were concerned, there have to be rules and regulations. And do you think that the good Mr. J. Raymond Jones was not asked all the same questions that Mr. Morton was asked? Do you think they didn't ask him whether or not you're worthy to be among these good white men? Do you think they didn't ask him, when we go to war with these black folks, your relatives and friends and family, are you going to be calling for peace before white supremacy's through doing them in? Are you willing to endure whatever sort of indignity and questions? When the black community gives you a hard time, are you going to crack under pressure? Do you think they didn't ask him that? Yeah, white power believes that before they admit you to the group, they got to check you out first. You ain't just getting in because you show up. Black folks are the only ones who admit everybody sight unseen. That's how you wind up with Richard Aoki, the so-called Yellow Panther, FBI agent that was the freaking Black Panthers. That's how you wind up with black organizations who are riddled with spies and informants and double agents. That's how we wind up like that. No rules, no regulations, and because as black folks, as far as we're concerned, everybody can just dump their casts off on us. We're accepting everybody. And we leave ourselves easy prey. Don't you think it's time for that to stop? See, our unconditional acceptance, we've extended it to practically everyone, and this is a mistake. We have to recognize this for the cultural failing that is could not be admitted to the group. Because a group that lets everyone in is nothing more than a circus. So that's how I feel whenever I look at members of the Black Immigrant Caucus who happen to have one parent who actually may most likely be one of us and another parent born elsewhere. When I look at them, I'm looking and going, well, I don't know. I just don't know. Part of the reason that we're so riddled with backstabbers, bootlicks, and scumbags is because we allowed it to happen. People come among us just to see what they can get. We are nothing more than fools to be lied to, manipulated into this or that direction, and then ignored. And this by people who claim to be our representatives. If we actually had people pushing our agenda, we would have had a lot of things that we needed long before now. Ayanna Pressley can get out there and do a press conference for immigrants, so why hasn't she and the rest of the congressional black talkers done a press conference pushing for reparations? John Lewis would get on the floor of the House of Representatives because a gay nightclub got shot up. Meanwhile, this guy's not doing any sit-ins after the Mother Emanuel Church massacre. You see any of them having a press conference pushing for a federal law to punish the police? The congressional black talkers ain't doing that. None of them saying, well, if Barack Obama can sign a Blue Lives Matters executive order, then he can sign a Black Lives Matters executive order. They're like, no, we can't do that. Black folks are the very ones we're war with. The Congressional Black Talkers are an arm of white supremacy. They are part of white supremacy's forward element. The white supremacy put among us for the sake of sabotaging our efforts, and they have done their job admirably. After we broke Kamala Harris's campaign, after we forced a congressional hearing on reparations, which was presided over by Sheila Jackson Lee herself, there's no member of the Congressional Black Caucus who can lie and say that they don't know that there's a major push underway for slave reparations from the black grassroots. They cannot say that they don't know that reparations is a major grassroots issue for black people. They know it, and they're hiding from it. They're not moving on the issue. None of them are making it a campaign issue. None of them are running on the issue. None of them are supporting it. That's why I started off with the account of the Tammany ritual. These black migrants who came here to take advantage of the opportunities that we brought about and to legitimize this process of replacing us, they would try to lay claim to our history. They're walking in the shoes of white power who brought them here. They'll toss around some loose talk about the plantations, but that had nothing to do with them. They'll talk about the 13th and 14th Amendments, but those were the fruits of our struggles, not theirs. Sheila Jackson Lee's people didn't need the 13th or 14th Amendments. We did, and still do. Stephen Horsford, his people didn't benefit from the Emancipation Proclamation. They weren't even here. So what the hell would he be talking about, trying to laud the 14th Amendment and trying to talk about how important that is to black folks? It ain't important to him. Joe Neguse didn't need it. Ilhan Omar damn sure didn't need it. Kamala Harris definitely didn't need it. And yet they'll toss those things around because they know that they matter to you. These were the fruits of our labors. Roly Poly and Joy Reid, they love to toss around names like Shirley Chisholm and her political accomplishments. But the only reason that Shirley Chisholm was able to even run for office or even had enough black support to win office was because of the 15th Amendment. But that wasn't Shirley Chisholm's accomplishment. And it wasn't the doing of her immigrant parents either. This was our doing, not hers. She had nothing to do with that. So it's a lie to act as if somehow the black vote and the benefits that she derived from it was somehow her achievement. This is the reality. These are the hard realities that need to be said. Because when we talk about foundational black, it don't just mean whether or not you've been here for a couple of days. You don't just get to show up and say, I went to Morehouse, or I went to some other HBCU, or some other do-nothing school. And, well, yeah, that means that now it goes for Brown v. Board of Education and the Voting Rights Act. Please tell me what Barack Obama's Kenyan father had to do with either of those things. See, the only thing Barack Obama's father was looking for was a white woman to snuggle up with. And apparently he found it. And when you're done finally facing facts as to what Barack Obama's father didn't contribute to the civil rights struggle, you can then go ahead and tell me what Kamala Harris's Indian mother had to do with the black struggle or her Jamaican father. What the world did they do to contribute to all the things that she takes advantage of? This is the most perverted form of historical revisionism. But white power has to do this in order to legitimize what is clearly nothing more than base thievery, theft of our history and what we as a unique people have done, all for the sake of trying to legitimize the greatest crime in human history. By claiming why we didn't steal these blacks' entire legacy and then wipe them out. Why we got a couple of these black immigrants over here, and why Joy Reid just got through telling us about how important the 14th Amendment is to her. And Kamala Harris said that she got bused to school a couple of times. So, you know, that whole Brown v. Board of Education, we owe that to Kamala Harris. We owe that to her family. We owe that to her. And that's part of what she and her folks contributed to this country. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to manufacture a legitimate basis by which to have their hand-picked puppets claim what we have done. Because when they do that, the one thing Joy Reid won't be doing is demanding reparations. The one thing Kamala Harris won't be doing is demanding that police be locked up for brutalizing black people. That's what they won't be doing. And that's what this is all about. It's meant to lay the groundwork for that, this continuing operation in order to scour us from the face of the earth. foundational black Americans have changed the world. And now it seems everybody's always rushing to try to claim what we've done, whether it be in music, whether it be in fashion, whether it be in athletics, whether it be in social and political movements. We do all of these things, bring all of these new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things into the world. And then everybody else tries to jump on it and claim they had something to do with it, when they didn't.
No, this ain't shake and bake.
Notice how all these Johnny-come-lately newcomers, these black migrants, don't carry the righteous anger that we do. They're not at all indignant nor looking for justice and righteous retribution for the greatest crime in human history. They talk in the same